testing, 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 testing. So what we want to do is usually go, I also after do this, I go outside. You want to check it on YouTube.
Testing, testing.
On the city website, and then also, oh, how's the view? Okay, perfect. The view is right where we want it to be. Green. Are they to know is the issue? No, but mute the mics. Mics, I guess. Just mute. Mute the mic. My email one last. Email. Seamstress. Yeah. So I was like, I had my wallet in my pocket. My stupid fucking cop. It was like, and I was like, no. Luckily, it's right on the seat. It's beyond my skills. Maybe that's not how she meant that.
Okay. He was my son, but he just got released, so he's not the state president. But he was my oldest son. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to our City Council meeting on this 19th of October. We have, if you have any comments later on with public comments, you're free to come up to the microphone. I'll announce that part of the agenda when we get there. As we begin, I want to let you know that we just completed a workshop in which we discussed employee retention and compensation. It's certainly an issue that every employer is facing these days, and we are no exception. And so it was an important issue that needed to be brought up, discussed, and the council was felt out as to which direction management needs to go. And we received many good suggestions along that line. Okay, we're going to begin now with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand and repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our city clerk, Rory Andreessen, will now call the roll.
Councilmember Sperry.
Here.
Gettle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Robinson. Here. And Glover.
Here. Thank you. Chief Randy Thomas is now going to make a report on Unified Police.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I really don't have anything to say tonight. I'm just lying. I got a bunch of points. First of all, I'd like to thank the city staff that came to Detective Wayne's retirement bash. He kind of wanted a small, quaint gathering, and he got that. He's very excited for the gift packet that the city provided for him. And I never realized what a really emotional guy he was, but we had some good kind of tear-jerking thank yous towards the end. So we wish him well for sure in his new career. I'd like to announce that our shelter resource officer, Dallin Thompson, has also given his letter of resigning. He is actually going to take a job at the VA as a VA police officer. Dallin at one time worked for me when I ran the K-9 unit and ran a dope dog, and so he's going to run the Veteran Administration dope dog and get that program back on its feet. So I look forward to it. He is a 21-year man also, if not more. So he's going to take the state URS retirement, and then he'll basically get his foot in the door for the federal opportunity for retirement as a VA police officer. And he has asked for absolutely no party. So he says he'll still be around and we can have lunch once in a while, but he doesn't want any big deal, so we'll respect that. I've mentioned before how jealous I am when I hear Chief Larson get up here and talk about their recruitment for their firefighters, and I at one time told my son that's in the Marines to be a firefighter, not a police officer. He stayed in the Marines, so it's, you know, he's still there. But we had our first phase of our recruitment. We had open recruitment for, I believe it was 3 to 4 weeks, and we had 30 officers apply. This is compared to 300 to 400 back in the day when, you know, it filled up a gym or a cafeteria on a Saturday, and you guys have heard the stories. But I will tell you that we had 30 registered to take our first phase, which is a physical fitness test. 26 of them showed up for the first part of the test. 4 of them didn't fail. So out of 3 to 4 week open recruitment, we have 22 candidates moving on, and that's just to go on to the background investigation and oral board. So we're really hoping we can pull some quality candidates out of there. As you may be aware, there was a significant injury crash last Thursday afternoon in the area of 180 West, 7200 South. A young man traveling westbound lost control of his vehicle and had a severe impact. I checked as of last night, he was still in extremely critical condition. I was told by the officer that's handling the investigation that UFA did an incredible job on scene. The amount of blood loss, for sure he would have lost his life at the scene if not for UFA's great work. So fingers crossed that he can make it through that. His injuries were significant. I did get word over the weekend from Juan, our tow driver that saved where we had the wheel underneath the freeway come off. He got the city sent a die-cast little model truck to him, I guess, and it looked pretty cool. I went to the link and he was very appreciative, as was his little boy, if you recall. I have to share a story about being under the freeway and a loose wheel that happened when I was going home for lunch today. I was in the double left-hand turn just waiting to get on the freeway, and you've all heard a crash. You hear that big crunch, smash. And I heard the crash, and I looked up, and a wheel was as high as the freeway overpass coming down and landed once between lanes of traffic, hit the car in front of me right in the windshield, almost hit my car, and then just rolled to the side. And I had no idea, you know, I called out on the radio, but I don't know what it is about 7200 South and loss of wheels there, but turns out a guy coming off the freeway southbound lost his wheel clear up where you just start to come off the freeway. It had come down the off-ramp, struck the side of a minivan. Luckily, it hit mostly where the metal in the back part of the car was, but it pushed the back of that car in about 2 feet, shot straight up, hit the car in front of me just on the windshield. There was a little baby in that car in the back seat. No injury, no one hurt, but startled. Crazy stuff. I don't know what it is about that intersection, but apparently it takes wheels off of cars. Luckily, nothing happened, though, beyond that. Just want a safety reminder with our upcoming Halloween festivities. It's getting dark out. I noticed tonight, I mean, it was kind of nice to see the sun for one time today. I mean, the rain this morning was a little gloomy. But it's getting dark out. The kids are going to be out. We're going to do the Halloween bash, not this Saturday, but the Saturday afterwards. So I just want to kind of warn the residents, watch out, the kids are going to be out. I know there's some question whether it's going to be Saturday or Sunday. Watch out every night. I want to mention that kind of an interesting dynamic between Mayor Hale reporting a crime or a suspicious information to me, as well as Mayor Flint of White City. As you know, as council members, I'm always available by phone, by text. Many of you have sent me problems in the neighborhoods, suspicious cars, characters. In fact, Lisa, was it last week, looked out her window and saw a guy walking down the street with a catalytic converter over his shoulder. And, I will tell you, I appreciate those calls as a secondary. I would say if it's a crime in progress, give dispatch the call first. With the mayor's reporting to me a suspicious circumstance, I didn't have my phone available to me, so there's a little bit of a delay. And when we looked into it, there was actually, in that particular case, two tenants that decided they found a squatter in an apartment, confronted him, turned into an assault, and one of the tenants pulled out his gun and fired a round in the air to stop the assault. So that really could have been a dangerous and lethal situation. So I just caution, I love the calls. but please call either the 911 or the non-emergency line so we can get the proper notifications, because sometimes even my notifications are a little bit slow. That being said, we met with Scott Ruff, the VEC director, this last week at UPD command staff, and there are two non-emergency numbers used at VEC. One's the 7437,000 number, which is what we're all used to, but in the future, VEC wants to go to a single non-emergency number, and that's going to be 8404,000. And we are at UPD going to start branding everything as such in the future, knowing that many of us have refrigerator magnets, Frisbees. That number's everywhere, the 7437,000. It will be on. Do you have a question, Matt?
Is it 801?
Yes, sorry about that. So the branding will be changing. The 7437,000 number will be in effect for, I'm certain a couple years, but even on our fleet vehicles, we're going to start putting the non-emergency number in there, and it's going to look different. If you call either number, you'll get the same, it'll switch over. But according to VEC, that switchover causes some IT difficulties, so we're looking at cooperating with them and fixing that. Want to remind everyone that this upcoming Saturday, we're doing our DEA take back. I contacted Laura Magnus this afternoon, and she's put it out on social media. That's where if you have any drugs laying around the house, subscribed, oversubscribed, any old medication, bring it in, no questions asked. We'll drop it off. Just bring it over to the precinct. We'll have 2 officers there from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we usually get probably on average 60 pounds worth of medication turned in on that single, and we do this twice a year. It's pretty significant. Some years it's been really slow, and then you'll have, I remember one year up at Hillcrest, we had a guy pull up with a small flatbed truck, and it had all his parents' medication. They had passed away, and it was just years and years of built-up medication that they were reluctant to throw away. Rather than put it in landfill or anything like that, the DEA will burn that, and they have to send it a significant distance to do that, but it's their recommended way of getting rid of that. And the last thing I'm going to mention is, many of you, we discussed it in our workshop, is Mr. Rivas passed away. Fausto Rivas was a pillar in a community, especially the Hispanic community. His services are going to be this upcoming Saturday. We are going to try, the UPD is not going to do a funeral escort, but we are going to try to block Center Street for a short period of time at Allen Street and Locust Street, just so that the family can get from the church, which is St. Therese, over to the cemetery. Probably we're thinking 11 to 11:30. So just want to make everyone aware of that. That's all I have to report tonight. Are there any questions or concerns I can answer? Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, next we will have public comments, and City Manager Matt Dahl wants to make a comment as we begin the public comment section. So, Matt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A few weeks ago, we had a discussion about how and if we were going to continue to take electronic communications or emails. As you recall, during most of the period of time during COVID, we would accept emails from individuals with concerns about topics that would normally come up during public comments. We would read through all of those, and there was some discussion about trying to change the policy. When we discussed it last, what was sort of brought up is we wanted to, as we receive those emails, send them to the council members and then sort of provide an opportunity to say, do we want to read it all? Do we want to discuss it? And sort of leave that option open. In this particular case, we've actually received our first one of these emails that we have sent to you. We sent to you yesterday, because this is sort of the first time, I just wanted to make sure that we all have the same understanding, that it's not necessarily saying that we're just going to read everyone that we get, but that if a council member felt that it was worth reading out that comment, that we would do so. Otherwise, we would just acknowledge to the community that all of these emails are making it to the council and that you are getting an opportunity to read it and be aware of it leading into the meeting. Does anyone have any different recollection of that or would like to handle it differently?
Didn't this particular person said specifically in her email that she wanted it to be read, right?
Right.
So that one's a no-brainer.
Well, yes, but most of the people that would be submitting under sort of the guidance of our, what's in our agenda, the assumption would be is that they do want it to be read. And so I'm fine reading all of them that come in or needing them to expressly say that they want it to be read, but I just thought from our previous conversation that you wanted it to be more of a council decision as to whether or not the ones that we send to you need to be read. If I misunderstood that, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on that.
I think that we should read those that come in rather than, because we could, if it was an in-person thing, if someone came up and, oh, wait, I don't want to hear from that person, we wouldn't do that as a council. So if someone sends a comment electronically, we should treat that the same way that we would anyone who stepped up to the microphone, as long as we still have the policy in place of accepting electronic comments as an acceptable means of feedback.
Okay. I clearly misunderstood when we last spoke about it, so that's, and does anyone else have any different understanding of what we said that last time? Are we just saying if they're submitted, we're gonna read them?
I think we need to keep it though within the 3 minutes or the so many words.
Oh, for sure.
We don't
Yeah.
want to have something go on and on and on and on.
I think my vague recollection was, I think we needed to make sure that it was understood that they wanted it read into the public record, right? So even if they just submitted comments to you or something, it was like, hey, is this one you want read, and that's where I thought maybe that was.
If they say specifically, I want this read, then we should read it.
Yeah.
If not, maybe we could take that second step to say, yes, we received your feedback. Would you like this to be a part of our council meeting? Is that why you're sending this? If someone emails in and says, I don't like Chief Thomas, we don't need to necessarily read that, but, if it's something pertinent to our agenda, the reasonable assumption is that they probably would like that read.
Okay. Great. I just misunderstood what we had said last time, so that's
Sorry,
great.
Chief.
That makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, I think it needs to be germane to the subjects we're discussing as city council.
Do you have it up by any chance? I do. So at this point, if you're okay, then I will read the comment that was submitted.
Go ahead.
So this was submitted through the city's website as described in our agendas. The email is from Lynette Phillips. The subject is public comment, discussion item B. She writes, please read at the next city council meeting. And so here it is. My name is Lynette Phillips. I have lived at 731 West Wasatch Street for the past 23 years. I am one of the people discussion item B will impact most. As someone who lives on the one block impacted portion of Wasatch, I am very much in favor of installing a raised traffic divider, turning my portion of Wasatch Street into a right-in, right-out intersection. Since moving into my home, 3 of my family's vehicles have been rear-ended attempting a left from northbound 700 West onto West Wasatch. One was totaled. There have been countless accidents in this busy and poorly aligned intersection, including multiple auto pedestrian accidents. Years ago, the city's plan to align the intersection included extending Wasatch into the Bingham Junction, aligning all of Wasatch at 8,000 South. This plan entailed demolishing my home and the rest on the south side of Wasatch between 700 West and Holden. When this option proved too expensive, discussion turned to converting West Wasatch into a cul-de-sac, blocking access at 700 West. This seemed a more reasonable and fiscally responsible approach than purchasing and demolishing multiple single-family homes and apartments. Short of the cul-de-sac option, this right-in, right-out option seems the safest and most effective solution without the cost and legal battle of eminent domain. If a left turn is needed, it takes a few seconds to make a safer turn on Lenox Street. I would strongly encourage the council to consider the positive impact this small modification could have on preventing injury and further property damage. I'd respectfully ask the council to move this to a vote at the next opportunity and vote to approve. We have no other electronic comments other than this.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay, we have entered then the public comment section of this meeting. Anyone that would like to address the city council on an item that is not a public hearing, we'll take care of those comments at the public hearing. You may come to the microphone, state your name, and we'll give you about 3 minutes to voice your comments. And welcome, Senator Reby. Always a leader.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. I know that it's been a really hard 18 months with all that's been going on. I just wanted to share with you that I am advocating for you guys for redistricting. I know that you are a community that is tight and really close-knit and has very unique needs, and so I'm trying my hardest to make sure that you guys are held harmless when we start doing our redistricting. So many of the things you spoke about in your meeting are stuff that we are talking about at the Capitol constantly, and so I want to know that your problems are shared across the state, and we are looking for solutions across the state. As we boast with one of the best economies in the country right now, it's unfortunate that we are struggling with retention of police officers and also teachers. So this is something that we're looking at as a state level, and we're trying hard to mitigate some of those unintended consequences of some of the growth that we have happening in our communities. Accessory dwelling units is something that we've been looking at to try to make sure that we are dealing with the housing crisis. I did actually reference your pool situation in education appropriations today. I think that our schools are our community centers, and so I'm advocating for you guys to have exactly what you need to make Midvale the best it can possibly be. I also have worked with homelessness. We have our new homelessness czar. His name is Wayne Niederhauser, and he's actually come up with some really great solutions, and I've actually referenced some of the situations that you have here. So I just want to say that I appreciate the work that you're doing, and all of your concerns are my concerns, and I'm trying to carry them with me as I work through our sessions. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your service. If you have questions, you can send me an email. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.
Hi, I'm Wayne Sharp, and my comment is directed towards the discussion item about the intersection at Main Street and Wasatch also. I tried to pull up the whole packet. I couldn't get it to come up to where I could really see it good enough to know exactly what's going on. And I know it's under the discussion item, so there's no public comment. And I know that Keith's going to be asking for direction, most likely. But I would hope that... And
there's no tie, so that's probably all he's asking.
And I don't feel like I'm qualified because I haven't actually seen the whole discussion to make any comments on it yet. But I use that intersection about 6 to 8 times a day, half the time pulling a trailer. So I see the traffic different times. My ex-wife is the crossing guard there, so I hear about everything that goes on there. So I'm anxious to see the discussion, but I don't know that you're willing or ready to receive public comment after the discussion, because none of the public has actually seen it yet, what this proposal is going to be. And I do appreciate Lynette speaking up, because she does live right there also. So,
Wayne, can I ask you a question? So if you use that intersection
in
frequently,
every direction, north,
So-
south, east, and west, every day.
do you see, because I use it too, and
Yeah.
I rarely encounter any problem. But, you know, some other folks have said it gets very busy at certain times of the day, unpredictably. So, do you notice any trends of when it's worse? Or
It's very predictable when the traffic is. It's in the morning, and the worst part is if you're westbound on Wasatch and you're trying to make a left onto Main Street, that's where you're going to get your most complaints from people. It's a nightmare. And then as the traffic backs up eastward, going west, trying to make that left-hand turn, now nobody can turn. No, it's hard for anybody to make a right-hand turn. Years ago, I thought, well, what if we could just extend the north side? We'd have to buy a little bit of property there and make a right-hand turning lane. That would alleviate much of the problem. Years ago, we also had a study, the city had a study done to looking at a stoplight there. And at that time, we were told it's a failure. don't do it because of the other half of West Wasatch where it's too close to where the intersect, it would cause even more problems. And I agree also with not putting a light there. And the reason, and most people may not like this idea, or this thought, when you go to a light, you look at the light. When you go there and there's no light, I think a lot of people tend more to look for pedestrians and vehicles rather than just totally trusting the light. I know of people who have made right-hand turns at lights and hit people because they weren't expecting everybody's going by the light. They're not really looking for people or vehicles. So I would be very hesitant to put a light there. Plus the traffic, the heavy traffic it comes in like 15 to 20 minute increments, and then there's nothing there. I say nothing. It's very little traffic, like you're saying, Dustin. And I know how frustrating that's going to be for people that are sitting there, especially trying to make that left-hand turn. And they're going to sit there for 3, 4, 5, 6 cycles just because of the way it's going to work. It's going to be more frustrating, I think.
Wayne, did you say, so you use it a lot, 6, 7 times a day. Would that barrier be frustrating to you? Is that what you're saying?
So I haven't really I couldn't tell exactly what the barrier, how that's going to work. That's part of why I'm going to sit through the whole meeting and then listen to the discussion to see what it actually is, rather than just read it and go, oh, okay, now I'm going to make it. I'm not qualified, even if I just read it.
Oh, okay, I get
without
what you're
actually seeing it, I don't feel like I'm qualified.
And I don't think you're alone there. I think a lot of us who read through the packet are still
Because there's a lot of information. And
I can envision a concrete barrier there. I wonder how that's going to help, though. So,
I usually don't like concrete barriers
Yeah.
in streets, especially when they try to landscape them. It's stupid, but it's a nightmare. I'm also a plow truck driver, and so I'm speaking up for the public works. They're a nightmare, and they're dangerous, especially little ones like this where you can't see them.
people are going to hit them.
People are hitting them all the
Flip
time.
the car.
Vehicles are running over them all the time and damaging their cars, especially we got so many small vehicles now that anyway, better wait for the discussion. And then it's up to you whether you take any more comments after that, and I understand that. Just making that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Anyone else like to make a comment to the city council? Come on up, Jose.
The first time I'm here, I am not see on the right side, the right place.
Just
Anybody speak Spanish here?
state your name as you begin.
Oh, I need to say my name. My name is Jose Artero. I'm from the most beautiful island in the world, Palma de Mallorca, Spain. I don't know if you don't need believe me, but you go to the computer and ask for Mallorca, Spain. You see, I tell the truth. I want to help everybody, but right now, I need help. My neighbor, he is a wonderful lady, but the husband coming, he have problem with the trees. She said, trim the trees, you do anything you want. But the husband coming from California, he said, I don't want you see around. I'm old man, I don't want fighting anybody. He is a wonderful man for he want to take care of the wife. But the problem is I have experience with trees. As old tree, the trees, big trees, one is dead, he have only 1 or 2 roots. Any snow or any stone fall down. He maybe fall down. I'm worried see somebody be injured. I'm from Panama, my wife is from Panama, and had that problem. One tree fall down, you know what big deal? Only break the cables, $50 to fix it. But I know when see that happen, no problem. But I see somebody is injured, I don't know my English, you understand what I say. And we worried, you know, for the lady is older. I'm more older, but she is older too. She's a wonderful lady, but I don't have any idea what I need to do, what place I need to go. Or maybe I am in the wrong place, I know I'm bother the mayor, I know I'm bother anybody. For I coming here for listen, but when I saw the chance talk, maybe she you give me an idea for I want to do it. So I called the professional, he said $1,500 for remove the tree. We are poor people. But I have the chance for do myself with my friends. But the man, he said, I know one you around here. I want to do it for free. You know what I mean? It's dangerous for a man, but the friends he have, younger, he jump in and do what he need to do. I talk too much, but thank you very much for everything. Maybe you do a good job, or maybe I need to go to the school and learn more English. But I say I'm too young for go to the school. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, everybody.
Jose, you need help with tree limbs?
I know, not for trim. Yeah, maybe I need help for trim, but I know one, I like Midvale. I know one fighting with the neighbor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to be gentle, but my English is too short, had the sweet word for tell the, I want to for free, for I have the tenant, he's young fellow, he put the scaffolds and be safety. But my father tell me, no fighting with I don't know what I need to do. No fighting. Yeah, I know one fighting. For one fighting for me, maybe I go fall down. I had diabetes. Only one punch is enough.
Glenn, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'll get with you outside.
Okay, I apologize. You make a good job, I think so. For everybody in Midvale live here. But we need to remove the snow too. Okay, it's enough. Thank you. Thank you very much.
See this good man over here on the way out, Jose.
Can we get him at every meeting?
Anyone else like to make a comment to the city council this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to our next agenda item, and that is council reports, and we'll begin with Councilmember Heidi Robinson, please.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everybody of the Halloween event on Main on the 30th from noon until 5 p.m. Please come down. We're going to have trick-or-treating and haunted houses and a lot of fun stuff on the street, so I really hope to see everybody there. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Paul Glover.
Nothing.
Councilmember Dustin Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone that ballots are out in the mailbox if you haven't received yours already. Just a couple, there's always rumors that go around when ballots are out, so you don't have to put a stamp on it. They recommend that you do just to save money, but you actually don't have to put a stamp on it if you mail it back. The cheaper way is to put it in our box that we have out here for you. There are other centers around the county as well. They have to be postmarked by Monday, 11/1, not on election day. If it's postmarked on election day, your ballot will not be valid. So if you have your ballot on election day and still want to turn it in, you have to go to one of the drop boxes. You can put it in there on election day. And I just wanted to say very briefly, we've had a few candidate events recently. Mayor's been there, I've been there, Councilmember Brown has been on vacation.
They were work trip.
Work trip, I'm sorry. Mr. Sharp in the audience has been there too. I just wanted to say, we have elections every 2 years here in Midvale, and I'm always very proud to see how our candidates conduct themselves in relation to other cities that should remain nameless to our south. They are a little contentious right now, especially when the entire city council runs for a mayor position. But we haven't had any of those issues here. I just wanted to say that, you know, every 2 years, I think our elections, we certainly have different viewpoints out there, but we also have a respect for our fellow candidates in Midvale that's unlike certainly national politics. So proud to be a part of that. Important thing is to vote, no matter who you vote for. Get your ballots mailed back or put in one of the convenient bins as soon as you can. That's it for me, Mayor. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Quinn Sperry.
I don't have anything.
Okay, and finally, Councilmember Ryan Brown.
Yeah, I just have one quick thing. It's in regards to, I think they're called Moda. Is that the apartments that are on Third? You know, the parking, I don't even think it's probably half full yet, that place. And I've never seen something that could cause such a dangerous situation to begin with. If you turn on to Third West from 7200, so if you turn right or left, the other day I had to come to a complete stop and wait for the traffic to leave Third West because there's big trucks parked, like, you know, people that are living there and people filling up the left-hand turn lane. And I couldn't get my pickup truck through the two of them. So I had to just sit there and wait, which is like extremely dangerous to begin with. The south side is red curved, you know, all along. I think there was some reason for pickup trucks and construction. Now that the building's done, they should be red curbing it from essentially the corner of 72 to that driveway. You know, that's 30 feet or something, but them parking in between their driveway and that, is it 7-Eleven or whatever, or Chevron's driveway, there's not really any room. So we need to really be proactive and paint that like within the next few weeks. And then we should remove the paint on the south side of the building, you know, if they're worried about losing spaces for the road, because that's not really where you're gonna run into that issue. If someone's there, you know, no one's turning left anywhere near there. So even if they sort of fill the road a little bit, traffic can still flow. There's no way to widen that road without taking out like a gas station or a storage facility. So the only thing we could do is red curb it, but we can, if they get even 3 or 4 or 5 more tenants, I mean, they'll inch closer and closer, and there will just be a wreck there. Like, and it'll be pretty dangerous. And, you know, I think it's also funny that they're on like their 3rd or 4th round of putting the tile on, which makes me think that once they leave, you know, some teenager or something will knock one of those tiles off just as easily, and it'll never look good. So normally I don't get involved with the look of something, but you know, if they're going that many rounds, today they're putting on a new, I don't know if you've seen it, Glover, they're putting on another attempt with that tile.
Just to reiterate what you just said, I went there the other day, and literally, with all those cars parked against, and there wasn't trucks there that day. It was just people that live in those apartments, and I don't know why they're parking out there when they got a garage, but they are. I had a big truck, and I could not get down there until another car. So I had to take the whole middle of the road to get through there because there was people parking. We need to put a non-parking all the way from 7200 to the end of that building.
Yeah, it needs to be done soon because
it's a disaster.
It's almost a guarantee. Yeah.
I don't know if we can do that, but we really need to.
And not only just the red curbing, because, I mean, you can red curb it, people still park there. You know, Glenn will attest to that. So we need to enforce as well and not just put a red paint. Sorry, Chief, again.
We're just finding more things to do.
All right, well, I'm looking at Keith to, that will look at that.
And sometimes the parking things, there's like sort of time in and out, right? Where, you know, this time of the day it's more or less. Every time I've been there, there's parking. So I don't know if there's not enough already or what's going on, but.
I can't see because they definitely don't have it all filled up yet.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they're not using their.
And some places, I mean, they could charge for parking, you know, a lot of apartments do, to have the premium spot underneath the building. You know, you might have to pay for that, and if I can park outside and not pay for that, I'd probably try it too, but we should be a little bit more proactive, considering the scope of that building as well.
That's all, sorry.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
could find something else, Mayor, if you'd like me to.
Well, this is your time.
No, I'm good.
My report is fairly brief. When we had the memorial for the staff sergeant that was brutally murdered in his military role in Afghanistan, we had a memorial at Hillcrest High School, and I had the opportunity to meet with representatives of the Hazara Association, which is Hazara's, what would you call them? A clan? Yeah, an ethnic community within Afghanistan, and there's many that have come to Utah because Utah's climate is very similar to Afghanistan, and the people are friendly to them here. And so I've been meeting with them and had a very productive set of meetings. And I want you to know that we're on the lookout for some space, if there's any, in our city of Midvale, where they could hold an association meeting, maintain their language, hold a type of worship service perhaps. So if you're aware of a room, I don't think it needs to be as big as this, maybe a quarter the size of this room or larger, would you bring it to my attention? Could be a warehouse, could be an empty school, could be empty church, or any meeting size room. And that concludes my report, so I'm going to turn the time now to our city manager, Matt Dahl, for his report.
Great, I'll keep it short this evening. The first is, I just wanted to bring up, for those who are watching this online, normally we have a little bit more interactive cameras, zooming in on the folks who are speaking and whatnot. Tonight we have just this sort of static camera. The reason for that is that we've been having some, we've been taking some precautions with regards to folks getting COVID, and in a matter of trying to make sure that we keep everyone as healthy as possible, we've been reducing the number of staff that are helping out this evening with this meeting, and that's why we're not following our normal sort of camera procedures with regards to the meeting, in case anyone's wondering. The next thing is, we did have a discussion during the workshop about city council priorities. During our budget process, we had identified a number of, the council identified a number of priorities. In the workshop, I just provided an update on the projects that correspond with those priorities and the progress that we've been making on them. That'll be something that we'll include in the notes for this meeting in case anyone wants to look at those and the progress we've been making. And then I think with that, I think I'll be good.
Okay, thank you. We'll next move to department reports and invite Nate Rockwood, our Community Development Director, to give a report on his department, please. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a department report on the Community Development Department and the Redevelopment Authority. So I just want to go through, there has been a lot of turnover in community development, but we have now hired all of the positions to fill all of those needs. Not everyone has started yet, but they'll be starting over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be fully up to staff, which is good. It's a good start. There's a whole lot of training that goes along with that. And there's some of our staff that really stepped up and basically, learned to train themselves on some of these positions so that they could turn around a week later and train the new people that are coming in. And some of the new people that are coming in, I would say, stepped up right from the beginning and really took initiative in learning their positions and learning the city. Because that's something that you really lose, is that institutional knowledge, especially in these areas like business licensing and planning and building safety, very critical elements of the city. And so extremely happy to be close to fully staffed, and it looks like we're going to have a great staff. So I'm excited to work with the staff that we have coming in. You talked about a lot of places where parking issues have been the case, so keep bringing those up. There's several areas that have been brought up in last meetings that Keith has been working on, and we have some solutions to those that you'll start seeing going in place. So we'll just keep hitting these things and fixing these as we see them, especially when they present, these dangerous situations on, especially line of sight and things like that. Just kind of finishing, I guess, some of Matt's updates. I wanted to talk a little bit, I won't go too long, but just about the Main Street redevelopment plan. Since I got here, we really started putting a plan and a strategy, and I would say kind of a philosophy in place on how to make that redevelopment happen. And it takes a while to do that. And so you've seen over the last 6 months to a year, a lot of all these little different plans that have come together. Those are all really aiming to build this new philosophy on what that Main Street can be. So we're at a point now where I think we've done a lot of the work, we've done a lot of the detail, always trying to take each one of these different elements of a plan and say, this is the focus for it, but it has these secondary focuses. So everything that we do there builds upon another element of it. And when you get all those in place, then all of a sudden you start to see things happen really fast. And I think in the next year, over the next year and 2 years, you're going to see a lot of things happen really fast there, and a lot of good decisions that'll come to the council or to the RDA board, but all very positive things. I was out of town 2 weeks ago, and so I wasn't able to come and say that Cody and I were able to go to the meeting with the Salt Lake County Council, who was the last body that we were getting tax increment from. We had got a lot of inside information, I guess, on what was going to happen there, and that there were certain elements that certain parts of that council weren't necessarily going to want to fund, especially in the area of arts, which we are trying to create an arts district here. Cody and I sat down and had a very good, long conversation with that council and talked about placemaking and talked about how placemaking drives businesses and drives the types of businesses that we want on this street into that place, and how much the funding for art plays into that, along with all of these different elements. So we were really excited when, we were told this is the way it's going to go. We were okay with that, but after talking with them, we got full support across the board from that council, and had comments from every council member saying this is the type of redevelopment that we want to see and we want to encourage. So it was really encouraging to get that last bit of money, but have the county council recognize that this is not just a place for Midvale locals, which it is going to be, but it is going to be a place for the entire Salt Lake County to be proud of if we do it right. So we have the plan, we have all the different elements of it, and we have the funding and the backers behind it, and we have the belief behind it. Now we just need to hit all those key points and do it right. There's going to be a lot of decisions that we make to make this place really special. But so we will see that final interlocal agreement come in the next couple of weeks. We have done the Main Street Arts demographic study. You'll see that come to you in the next month or so. We are still working on the art house renovations. We're planning on that to come online in spring. We've done a Main Street infrastructure study that says this is the type of hard infrastructure that is going to need to happen for this development to work. We formed the Main Street Business Alliance, which is pretty amazing. I think we had 3 meetings. In the last meeting, we're really starting to have a true business alliance. I sat on the Park City Main Street business group forever, and there was as many people in the last meeting as we would often get in the Park City meetings, and that's 10 times the number of businesses there. We also have parking strategies that we're putting in place that are going to be key to making it so that people can actually enjoy being here. The basketball court RFP is out, and we're starting to get a lot of response to that. We've put the small business loan program in place. We're starting to get people talking about how does that work? How can I take advantage of that? So we've been sitting down with people on that. The upper floor housing program, that one will take a little bit. That'll be the right project that goes after that, but we have had people talking about that and interested in that. In addition, we do have the mural programs, and so we're getting a lot of interest in the murals. And Kate and I just met with some local artists today that had come in before that just have ideas that I hope will just blow us away, and we'll be able to implement some of those things and really make this a place. So all of these different things all work together. They're all going to start happening. You know, it took us a long time to put those together so that they have the right detail, so that they're incentivizing the right things, and so that they interact with each other the right way. But this really is part of a bigger philosophy on how this street is going to come together and work. And I think in the end, we're going to get something amazing that the locals are going to love, the locals are going to be proud of, and I think Salt Lake County is going to be proud of. And we just need to do now the hard work of sticking with what we want to see there, sticking with our vision, and making sure that that we make it the place that we all know it could be. But it's an exciting moment. We'll keep talking about that. It's just exciting to get the funding. At some point, when we have a couple of other these plans that we're working on, believe it or not, there's still a few more plans that are going to come in on how to do this. But Cody and I will add up all the different plans and all the different, incentives and just funding that we're able to pour into this area. And I think it'll be kind of amazing to see that a little community like Midvale can pour that much funding into a place that I think will kind of put Midvale on the map and will give us the sense of pride in the city that I think our residents deserve. Anyways, so I could talk on that for a long time. You could probably tell, but that's the update that I have from CD. Unless you have any questions for me.
Nate, I just wanted to thank you and Cody for all the hard work that you've done, talking to all the different entities that we needed to get on board to make this happen. You guys have done a tremendous amount of work. The mayor and I attended the meeting that you had with the school district and saw just, how much work you guys have put into it. And not just work, but passion. We can tell that you and Cody and all of the community development team is passionate about this project, which, does not go unnoticed. In fact, just talking to community members, people know your name and they know Cody's name. And I think that's amazing. Just the fact that they know that you're the two in City Hall that are, amongst others, but working so hard on making Main Street something. And finally, I've noticed that community members are now, not just as if we're telling them that this is going to happen and, dangling the carrot. People really do feel that something's happening on Main Street now, and it's been amazing to be a part of.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nate. That was a good presentation. We'll now move into the next part of our agenda, public hearings. We have 2 items. The first one is to consider a text amendment in the Midvale Municipal Code regarding Chapter 13.16 Stormwater Ordinance. So I would like a motion to move into a public hearing on this item.
I move that we go into a public hearing.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to move into a public hearing. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? I hear none. Therefore, we are now in a public hearing on this item. And Keith Ludwig, would you like to give us an introduction to it, please?
Yes, sir, I would be happy to. Good evening, Mayor and council members. As you probably are aware at this point, since 2003, we have been under the requirements of the Phase 2 of the Clean Water Act. Among other things, that required us to get a discharge permit from the state DEQ for our stormwater.
What is DEQ?
Department of Environmental Quality, the Utah State Department of Environmental Quality. They are mandated under the EPA to deal with the, it's called the Utah Pollution Discharge and Elimination System, UPDES. The national level is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, the NPDES. Part of this permit requires us to develop a stormwater management plan, and which outlines what we do as a city and the activities that we participate in to help manage and clean up stormwater. Obviously, the goal of this program is to clean up stormwater. And I'm sorry I get off topic or I get off script and tend to ramble, so I'll try to stay a little bit more. So each year, the state Department of Environmental Quality, through the Division of Water Quality, conducts audits of various cities and counties and their stormwater program to see how well they are handling the requirements of their permit. Earlier this year, it was our turn. In March of this year, we spent 2 days in virtual interviews with State Department Division of Water Quality personnel, including several members of my staff and several members of the Public Works staff. Prior to those virtual interviews, we sent them records and reports and a bunch of paperwork dealing with our stormwater program. They also, as part of this audit, conducted 2 in-person inspections of our facilities. One was the Public Works yard and the other was the cemetery. Along with those inspections, they randomly chose 2 active construction sites, one being the Motor Union site on Millennial Drive and Cottonwood Street, the other being the Holmes project on 7th West and Bingham Junction Boulevard. After the audit was complete, they returned to us a report outlining the deficiencies that we needed to correct and work on. We had 30 days to respond to that report with a timeline and a corrective action plan, which we did. We actually broke several of those deficiencies into two groups. One we thought we could get done fairly quickly and put a deadline of August 30th on. The others we thought would take us a little bit longer and put a deadline of December 1st of this year. I'm happy to report that those items that were due August 30th were submitted well before that date and were acknowledged by the state as being completed. Several of the remaining items involved our Stormwater Ordinance and changes that needed to be made or things that needed to be corrected or added to that ordinance. So I'd like to go through those if I could. There were 8 items. I'll talk a little bit about what the deficiencies were and where in the ordinance we corrected those. First one was update the ordinance to restrict non-stormwater discharges. Section 13-16-120, entitled Dumping and Illicit Discharge, was changed to more explicitly define allowed and prohibited discharges into the storm drain system. Number 2, ordinance must be updated to include the requirements for use of sediment and erosion control practices for construction projects. Section 13-16-100C was added to require this. Let me say that on several of these, we were requiring these items as part of their construction submittal or site plan submittal. Just our ordinance didn't require that. we did it as a practice, but we didn't have the ordinance sort of backing, so. Number 3, ordinance did not include sanctions to ensure compliance with erosion and sediment control measures. With the additions that we made to section 1316-100, the enforcement can now be done through the ordinance. Number 4, ordinance did not apply to construction projects greater than 1 acre or projects less than 1 acre that were part of a bigger common plan of development. Again, that was something we were requiring by practice, but the ordinance did not spell it out. Section 1316-100C now defines those construction projects. 5, ordinance did not require construction operators to prepare a storm water pollution prevention plan, commonly called a SWIP. Section 1316-100D now requires a SWIP to be prepared. Again, something that we required by practice, but did not have it in the ordinance. Number 6, ordinance did not contain provisions for the city personnel to access and inspect construction stormwater best management practices, or commonly referred to as BMPs. Section 1316-160C was added to allow for this. Number 7, the ordinance did not require the use of BMPs in the project's long-term stormwater management plan. Section 1316-150C was modified to require those best management practices in their long-term stormwater management plan. And there's not a cute way to say that, long-term stormwater management plan, so.
Let's whip.
Number 8, city did not have a written requirement for allowable discharge rates into the storm drain system. Section 1316-100B now outlines the city requirements. Basically, those requirements are that they have to retain on site any volumes required by the permit, which currently is what they refer to as the 80th percentile storm. For our area, basically that refers to the first half-inch of water has to be retained on their site and dealt with. And then they can release anything above that into our system at a rate, assuming that our system is available and has the capacity to handle that. So after I went through and tried to make the changes to the ordinance, I gave it to Garrett Wilcox, the Assistant City Attorney, for his review. He made several changes, added some things to the definitions, worked his magic so everything I did looked good and sounded good. He also took the opportunity to correct some formatting errors so that the entire ordinance would read and look better. After that was done, we sent this draft back, or sent it to the state, to Lisa Stevens, who's been our point person during our audit. We wanted to make sure that what we had done would satisfy the state. So what we brought before this body would be adequate, and we wouldn't have to come back and make changes because we missed something or fell short on something. You're in a public hearing. You are able to take action on this item tonight. Our recommendation is to approve this ordinance with the changes that we've outlined. So if there's any other questions I can help you with or answer. I know stormwater is a fascinating subject, and we could spend hours on end talking about it. Glenn was the stormwater guru at South Jordan, so he probably can, expound a lot.
I just have one question. Since most of these 8 items are things that we weren't doing in the past,
we were doing by practice, we just didn't have them in the ordinance.
Okay, so that was gonna be my question, is to, make sure that, because if you look at this, I'm like, oh my God, we didn't have these things in our ordinance before. So just to clarify.
We were doing all of those by practice. Like I said, they just weren't outlined in the ordinance.
And so therefore, no additional cost as far as like having to enforce this, because we have already been doing it.
Right.
Okay.
We just now have the backing of the ordinance, basically. It's spelled out.
Okay.
Other questions for Keith from the council? Thank you, Keith.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing, and so if you have comments on this ordinance change, you are welcome to come to the microphone and give us your opinion on it. I see no public comment. Therefore, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close this public hearing. Any comments or questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now ready for a motion on this.
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2021-020, amending the Stormwater Utility Ordinance, Chapter 13.16 of the Midvale Municipal Code.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the motion? I hear none. Therefore, Rory, would you ask the question?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Glover?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Brown?
Yes.
Gettle?
Yes.
And Sperry?
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. We'll now move into our second public hearing to consider a final subdivision approval for the Mill Phase 1, a proposed 24-unit, single-family residential phase on 3.54 acres located at 236 to 264 East, 8,000 South, in the multifamily residential medium-density RM12 zone. I'd like a motion to move into this public hearing, please.
Mayor, I motion that we move into a public hearing.
Second?
Okay, I have my motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, we are now in a public hearing on this item, and Jacob, no, this isn't Jacob.
No. No, that would be the applicant.
Elizabeth.
Yes. No worries.
You look better as an Elizabeth.
Oh,
than a
thank you.
Jacob.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you can see this presentation. I guess not. I'm not quite sure how to share that, but all the information should be the same as in your packet. So hopefully this shouldn't be anything new. This is a final subdivision plat for the Mill Phase 1. So you have seen this as a large-scale master and a small-scale master and preliminary previously. So just to the north of it is 8,000 South, and it's kind of bracketed on the east by, let's see, 300 East, and I think that's Tap Lane there on the west. The final subdivision is in line with what they submitted for the preliminary, so nothing drastic has changed there. And then the conditions, as outlined in your summary report, have remained the same, as well as the potential motion and staff recommendation to approve the project with conditions.
Any questions for Elizabeth?
Just wonder when they're actually going to start groundbreaking on this.
Maybe the applicant can speak to that?
As soon as you tell
You need to come to the mic. Sorry.
As soon as we approve it.
Jacob Alstead, Garvette Homes, 270, let's see, I'll give you my address. No, anyway.
I don't think we need your address for
Thank
this
you.
purpose.
We're anxious to start as soon as we have approval. If we get approval tonight, I think we're just waiting for final civil approval. We've already been through a couple rounds of corrections, so I imagine it wouldn't be any longer, much longer, and then we'll be moving forward. So our plan is to start this fall.
Okay.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public that would like to address this approval of this final subdivision for the Mill Phase 1? May come to the microphone. We'll give you, state your name, and we'll give give you 3 minutes. Okay. John, come on up.
My name's John Bruder. I live at 8033 Tap Lane. And I have a couple of questions, I guess, for the applicant. From what I understand, the initial proposal was, I believe, from 236 east to about 300 east, roughly, I believe. Is that correct?
Our project does go to 300 east. I'm not sure what the west boundary is.
Okay. So since the initial proposal, they purchased, I just know the people as Reva Norris and Tim. Can't remember Tim's last name. Tim Park. They purchased the back portions of their properties, okay, which are adjacent to my home on Tap Lane, to the backyard of my home. And I guess the first question is, does this proposal include homes on those properties? Does it? Okay.
We haven't even seen anything for that, right?
Okay, but those homes will be developed in the future, correct?
That's the hope.
Okay. And I guess one of the questions that I have is, if those homes are built, currently I believe there's an entrance to this subdivision from 3rd East going west and from 80th South going south. 2 entrances, is that correct? Okay. So when they do decide to develop, and as I'm not exactly sure how long Reva, who is in her 90s, is going to continue to own her home, okay? But let's say that they decide to develop after, where will the remainder of that traffic exit? Will it exit through the subdivision they're currently planning on building? Okay, or what are they going? How have they thought ahead and put anything on any kind of a master plan of how they want to handle traffic in those new homes that they'll put in? So have you considered that at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a plan?
Not tonight.
Okay. And I guess what their hope is that Reva will pass on and they'll buy from Reva's children her property. And Tim, who is quite a bit younger, probably, well, he's told me that he will not sell his north property, okay? So I'm a little concerned about what they're going to do as far as when they develop those homes, where they're going to route the traffic, okay? That's one concern. Another concern that I've got, I guess, is that I took the plat map that they had done October 2020 in that city council plan or meeting, and I calculated that the maximum sized lot was 0.174 acres. Just barely over 1/8 of an acre. 1/8 of an acre is 0.125, so it's a little better than 1/8 of an acre. Their smallest lot, which is the majority of their lots, are 0.018, which is barely above 1/16 of an acre. So if they have lots that size, how large of a home are they going to build? Okay, they say that the homes are going to be 3,000 square feet, so 3 levels, 1,000 square feet each level. Okay, so one of my concerns, I guess, is that, back in one of the prior meetings that we had had, and I made comment there as well, is that Adam Nash said, and he compared the homes that were going in to be about the size of Andrew Stoddard's, who lives over in, I believe it's the new subdivision just south of where they're going to build. And I took a look at that, and they're not anywhere close to the size of Andrew Stoddard's home. And I guess you wonder, well, what does it matter as far as these lot sizes? I don't know if any of you know how large of a lot your home sits on. Mine sits on 1/4 of an acre. So if you have 1/16 of an acre lot, okay, that's 1/4 of the size of the lot that I have my home sitting on, okay? And the footprint of my home is roughly 2,500 square feet. So if you take that divided by 4, okay, you come up with a little over 600, maybe 700 square feet at the most, as far as footprint for the home. So I guess what my concern is number one, the size of the home and the people that it will draw. I guess what I'm looking at is this will be starter homes for most people, which means there'll probably be quite a turnover of people as people come in and they have their home, that they'll have it for a couple of years and then they'll sell the home or they'll rent the home. Maybe some people will purchase them as rentals and rent their homes, okay? So it doesn't seem like it's as conducive to the goals that Midvale has said, that they want to have Midvale to be a place where people can come and set roots down and have long-lasting residency. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm concerned, you brought up, Councilman Brown, about the parking. And I'm assuming that's in reference to the high-density housing that's gone in over there on 7200 and roughly 3rd West. And you say there's ample parking when they plan that there's ample parking, yet those housing units aren't completely full from what I've heard tonight, and they're having parking issues now before they're full. What happens when they are full? Then what happens with parking? So there are 72, from what I understand on the current plot, 72 homes going in that subdivision. And I believe there are 2-car parkings or garages. What will happen with all of the visitors? What will happen with any people that have more than one car for one reason or whatever? Okay, where are those cars going to end up being parked? They'll end up on 80th and 30th. Okay, and 80th is already an issue with parking. Trying to pull out of Tap Lane, we've had this conversation before, it's kind of dangerous, okay? So we're just a little concerned. I'm a little concerned about, again, what's the impact going to be for Midvale with the size of the homes? Is there any reason why the builder couldn't build some larger homes and attract people who want to put down roots permanently in Midvale? I've lived in Midvale City, well, Sandy City technically, but in Midvale, between being in the county and then being annexed into Midvale for over 30 years. So I've been what I consider a permanent resident. So what about Midvale's goal of having permanent residents and not transition residents?
Well, I mean, I just want to make it clear. So I totally agree with you on the parking issue. I like it, but other than that, I really like this project. I do think that the parking that they're punting on it and they'll say like, well, meet your requirements, which I don't think builds necessarily a good community. Like, if it's not wide enough for people to park on the street, there's gonna be parking issues, and they've made it like a private road for that reason. So I think that's awful. I'm on your side, but, as far as the rest of, so I'm in your district, and if you go west of State Street, we're all 1,900 to 2,200 square foot homes. And we have people that have lived there 40, 50 years, right? So I don't know if 3,000 we would all be happy with an additional 1,000 square feet. I mean, mine's 1,900, and I have three daughters, which does feel very tight, on occasion, but, you know, I don't know if the square footage would be enough for me to think that this would be a transition home, and I'm guessing just with the cost of housing today, with a 3,000 square foot home, I mean, I don't know what they're gonna list it at, but I could easily see them going for $500,000 or more, which is another story for another day. But I don't know if a lot of people will necessarily have that for their starter home and then move on quickly, right? So I think your fear of them moving quickly is probably not likely going to happen. The parking issue, though, is something that I'm concerned about as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is that they tout that the homes will be 3,000 square foot, but that would be the size of their largest home. And if you're looking at a lot, the majority of the lots being 0.016 acre, okay? I think I counted, I'd have to look at my spreadsheet, but I think I counted three lots that were around 7,000 square feet, and the rest of the lots were much smaller than that. So,
On our plot here, it says like 4,668 square feet. Is that the home, or is that the whole piece of property?
that's the piece of property.
Is that right, or
I'm not sure.
on the plat?
Liz, can you, or the developer, can you guys speak to the house sizes versus the lot sizes?
I just wondering, I'm just looking at this plot.
Looking at the flat.
We need you to come to the, microphone so that
I'll
those
step down and
listening
Paul
in
comes
can
up.
hear your words
I just want to clarify what I'm looking at is all, just to make sure.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're looking at is the lot size.
Okay.
They're about 4,000, 4,500 square feet, which is about 1/10 of an acre. I think the gentleman that commented was a little bit
It
off.
does say how part of an acre, and most of them here are either 10 up to, what are they, 11, 0.11. So there's a few that get down to 0.8, but most of them are in the 10 and 11
Yeah.
point acres.
Sounds about right.
So
And the home size is,
it's on the plat, so I can see it.
I put all those lot sizes in my spreadsheet and sorted it by size, so I can tell you what those are.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the actual plat, so.
What concerns me with this is there is no public parking yet, right? Like, I thought there was gonna be some areas where there was gonna be some, you know, overall, and I'm not, unless I'm not seeing on this, you know, this is how many homes? 24 homes, and I guess we're just not expecting them to have any company until you build out further, or, you know, what's the sort of plan with that?
good question, Councilman Brown. In the preliminary approval, there was some discussion about this, about the guest parking. And you were right in your comment earlier. We've met the requirement and we've exceeded it. And from the time that we did preliminary to final, prior to the comment, actually to your comment before, I added more parking than what was required. And it was done around parcel A. It doesn't show it on this plat, but there's 6 to 8 stalls or so on parcel A.
That will be there?
Yeah, that will be there, that are on the plans. And those were more than what were originally on the plan that were shown when we did the zone change. So I totally understand the parking dilemma. And in each phase as we come through, I'm trying to add as much parking as we can. It's not easy to try to figure it out, but I made some changes to the lots, and did everything I could to add as much parking as I could while still maintaining the required open space. So,
Like, so 122, 123, 124, they'll just enter right on into
on to 80th South, yeah.
South.
Yeah. And to address some of the comments from the neighbor, Park and Norris owns the two long parcels to the west, and we've been negotiating with them to try to purchase the back 2/3 of their property. And you can't see it on this phase one, but on phase two, there's already a stub street that goes to their property that was designed with the intention that one day that would likely develop.
On the
to the
south end?
On the south road that runs east and west,
okay.
There's a stub street that goes north into the rear of their properties, and that's how we'll access it. We're not negotiating with them to purchase their homes on 80th South, so those homes will stay there, and we'll just develop the back 2/3. But it's very preliminary. I haven't made an application yet. It'll be, I don't know, another month or 2 or 3 before I do that.
Yep. This is my area, and I've heard the concerns. I think we've went through a lot of them. I generally like the idea. The only thing is I understand there's different generations when it comes to, how big of a lot is, acceptable. And I empathize with that. But what doesn't change is parking.
Sure.
Right? Like, I would wager everyone here has 2 cars and has friends and kids and stuff.
Yeah.
So, if we can always continually push towards figuring out a way to make it work, that would be the best.
Yeah. I echo the parking concern, and we'll do our best to add as much as we can.
I think this is a great project, and anywhere we can add 72 single-family homes in Midvale is certainly a benefit to our community. In fact, most people remember this was proposed as a high-density apartment rental unit, and we have 72 single-family homes now, which is what most people in our community have been clamoring for. So I applaud this project. We'll figure out the parking as it happens. There are growing pains everywhere, but one of the comments was, couldn't you build fewer houses on bigger lots? But I mean, that adds less housing inventory, and it doesn't do anything to bring new residents into Midvale. And I just can't say enough good about this project.
Thank you, Councilman.
Other questions for the developer?
Thank you, Council and Mayor.
Thank you. Other public comments, please? Come on up, Floyd.
My name is Floyd Tarbett, address 207 East, 8135 South. That's in the Larson Cove subdivision, which is the subdivision just to the south of where the new homes are going to be built. But before I make a comment about the new homes, I'm glad that you said something about the ballots. Karen and I cast our ballots, and they're in the mail today, and we both voted for Mayor Hale.
Oh, well, thank you.
There were certainly some concerns for our neighborhood as the first parts of the subdivision was presented. But as it is now presented, Karen and I are in favor of the subdivision, and so we would go down just to express our appreciation of the changes that have been made, and that we approve the new subdivision as it is outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Floyd. Are there any others that would like to comment on this? Come on up, state your name.
Hello, my name is Zachary Webb. I am a new homeowner in Midvale City, and I'm considering to live here for many years to come. I came here from Idaho, grew up in Idaho, excuse me, where there's a lot of land to grow things. Now, moving into more of a city area has been a big change for me. When things like this occur, my biggest worry is to secure our livelihood, our quality of life, are we sacrificing some potential growing land by just allowing people to populate in this area? That's my question and my concern. Please consider this.
Well, having grown up in Idaho myself, Zach, I understand your concern. Okay. Any other public comments? I see none, and so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any comments or questions before we take a vote?
Can you just remind me on the driveways, are they half driveways that we see with a lot of new construction, or are they full driveways where you could not only put 2 cars in the driveway, but 1 or 2 perhaps in the driveway as well?
So 4, could you park 4 on your lot?
Yeah, 4.
4?
From the drive to the garage.
Come to the microphone if you would, please.
Yeah, the driveways, I don't know if they're 18 or 20 feet, I can't remember, but they are size appropriate to park 2 vehicles in the driveway and 2 in the garage.
And that's really appropriate.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes it so that at least if you do have a couple people coming over, they're not taking every area.
Right.
So, and having said that, I liken this unto the properties just north of Top Golf that we did. So, and those have been worked out, and I was a little leery of those to start with. When we first put them in, it's like, but we haven't had a lot of parking problems there, and the people that are living there are staying there 5, 6, 7, 8 years. People have moved in when it was first built are still there, and I'm good friends with a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it's actually turned out to be a really good project. And I seriously doubted it when it went in. It was like, because they had all of these dead ends, and it was like crazy, but it works.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can reach out and touch your neighbor's house.
Yeah.
But I understand that's what you got to do. But it really works out much better to have a single-family home. I don't know why, but it just does. People seem to stay longer.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. We
So-
modeled our community after that.
So that community's been really good. So if yours is as good as theirs, I think the neighbors are going to enjoy it, actually.
So for me, the one thing that would make this easier for me going forward with any of your other, if you could highlight where, if you're like, hey, this is generally we're going to put some, because I am all for this project generally, but when I got this, I went, oh, they must be putting that in the next phase, the public parking. So if you can say, hey, that way also when it goes out, if anyone gets the mailing, besides just myself, because that's what I would have thought as well, like, hey, there's no additional parking. Just to give a heads up, because that would make it easier for us to say, hey, we hear you about the parking concerns, and here's where, there's going to be some extra parking here along the way.
Yeah, we did have a site plan in here that showed where the parking was at.
Oh, you provided one?
Yes, but I didn't prepare the presentation.
I think it's part of our IT.
Yeah, that might be it. Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's
So, anyway.
Thank you then.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. It's still public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, come to the microphone.
I think we closed it, but we can, I'm fine if he speaks. We have to reopen it? Yeah.
I move that we reopen the
I didn't-
meeting public comment.
Do we need to
Second.
make a motion for that?
He just did.
A motion, we open the public comment again?
Second.
Okay, we
Must
got a
not have
motion
been
and a second.
Just 1 second. We had a
comment
second.
on the motion?
That's
All
fine.
in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Any
Yes.
opposed? All right, John, go ahead.
I must not have been paying attention because I don't remember you closing the meeting. I do want to make a couple comments. Number one, I do want to thank Councilman Glover. And I believe it might have been Councilman Brown that I called. I can't remember. I called 2 of them and talked to him back in October of last year. And Councilman Glover spent a lot of time on the phone with me, and we talked about that property north of Topgolf, where my wife and I drove through that, and I appreciate those comments. The question I do have for Jacob is that he mentioned there's a stubbed out road currently in the properties that are owned by Tim and Riva. Where did you say that is?
It's stubbed from our property onto theirs on the very south end of their property.
It's not in this phase, right?
It's not in this phase, it's in the next phase.
On the south end of their property or your property, which you own now?
Well, there is no stub on their property. The stub is a dead end road from our property on the very south end of our property that stubs north into the rear of theirs.
Okay, but it doesn't go beyond through theirs. What you're saying is that when you purchase their homes, Tim's and Riva's, you would continue the road north out onto 80th.
No, we would not go out onto 80th.
I think we need to contain, John, I think we need to contain the conversation to this
Okay.
project.
Okay.
And the other
I'm just
we'll take
concerned
care of
about,
when it-
you know, because they have
Of
plans
course.
to develop that in the future.
Right.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have purchased the property.
But they have to come back before us
Okay.
to show us
Yeah.
those plans, and we'll have to approve them completely. So you'll have an opportunity to talk about it then.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, we can't go into
Yeah, I won't get into that.
the future.
Yeah, I won't get into that at all. Yeah, I do want to say that we are looking forward to having single-family homes, okay? I'm not happy about the size of the single-family homes because I have my concerns, as I've mentioned. Concerned about the parking, concerned about the demand on public utilities, okay? That there will be on the water pressure and those types of things. And our police and fire departments, the extra demand on them. A little concerned about that. I would much rather have what's going in now as what's been proposed than having high density or even medium density housing, okay? So those are pluses. I just have a couple of little concerns about those other things, particularly the parking and the demand on the utilities, okay? So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Any others that would like to comment from the public? All right,
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
okay, we got a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Comments or questions on the motion? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll just make a comment real quick, Mayor. I
Yes,
mean,
please.
you know, some of you already said from what it was initially proposed, and I think we're at what, year 3 probably on this project? Is that about right?
2.5.
And I agree, it may not be perfect from what everybody wants, but I think that the time that we spent, I mean, think of the first couple of meetings when we were here, how many people were here and how contentious it was. And, you know, the developer was willing to work with the neighbors and work through some of the issues. And now here we are with the product that, even as a council, when we first rejected it, said come back with single-family homes. And we're here, and again, it may not be as big as some want, but I think we're getting a better product than, you know, than initially was proposed. So glad that everybody was willing to work together.
I just want to add to that, you know, we're talking about, you know, what we think about lot sizes, but I'm fairly confident that those 72 people who buy these homes will be very happy with their home and their lot size. So, you know, we need to make sure that we welcome them into our community.
And one thing I always think of with parking, and I didn't realize this until you kind of had areas where there's less parking, is, you know, part of it is on the owners as well to not use their garage as a storage unit, right? You have the opportunity to have you know, a single family home with big lots. Sometimes it's a little easier because you have sort of that on-street parking, but you know, the owners can also help themselves with parking, right? And making sure they're using their parking accordingly. So, yeah, like Councilmember Sperry said, it's not, you know, necessarily perfect, but I think it's come such a long way that I'm pretty pleased with it.
That's a good comment on garage use too. Okay. Got a open ear now for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve with conditions the 24 lot final subdivision at 236 to 264 East, 8,000 South, consistent with the findings and conditions as noted in the summary report.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and second, and a second of a second. All right. Any comments on the motion? All right, we'll have Rory then give the roll and ask for the vote.
Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
And Glover.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll now move to a consent agenda to consider the minutes of October 5th, 2021.
I move, Mayor, that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any comments or questions on the motion? Rory?
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
Glover.
Aye.
And Robinson.
Yay.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to our discussion items, beginning with the first of three, to discuss street cut moratorium. Nate?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a policy that Keith and I have worked on that we think is a good idea, and we wanted to bring it forward to the council to consider it. What this would be is a road cut moratorium on new streets and overlays and slurry seal. So basically what this policy would do would, for the first 3 years of a new street or overlay, would not allow road cuts to go in unless they were emergency road cuts. And then it would apply a standard either for those emergency road cuts or the next 3 years after. So basically it's 3 years of no cutting. 3 years after that, it's a higher standard of replacement. Typically, instead of just putting a patch in there, it requires that it's ground down a certain way and typically lengthen out to the length of, or the width of the lane so that you don't get these patches everywhere. We think this policy, if council wants to go forward with this, will prolong the life of our streets, give a better ride, avoid potholes, avoid all the issues that come up with new streets and new overlays. Again, it has a lot of flexibility in there for the city engineer to make determinations on when new road cuts need to happen. Obviously, if the new development goes in on a new street, there'll be allowances to allow them to cut into the road, but there will be these higher standards of how they replace those new roads so that they last longer. So I kind of gave it is a relatively simple policy. It's something that I've seen in a lot of communities, and communities that I've worked for before. We've put these in place and have had success keeping those roads lasting longer, especially with the snow and what the snow and the ice do to roads when you start to put cuts or put cores into them. So that is the presentation on that. Pretty simple, straightforward. But
let me ask you, if this were already in place as you're proposing, what would 80th South look like now from?
I'm not sure exactly how, would 80th South, was that new enough?
Thank you.
Look how excited he is.
I am excited about this.
I've never seen it move so fast. He ran up to the mic.
If this policy were in place now, Questar would have had to wait a few years because it's not an emergency for them to do what they're doing. And we were within the 3-year time frame of when we overlaid 80th South, 2018-ish.
And even if they did do it, it would be better than.
And then even if they did do it, then they would have to apply these higher standards of restoration. I will say we have, through the efforts, and I have to give credit to my project manager, Steve Bush, they are planning, and we're getting a little bit late in the season, but we are planning on having them, and he's got Questar to agree to this, to do a mill and overlay basically from 7th West to Pioneer. And it may not happen this season just because of the weather situation, but he's working on a contingency plan to help us get through the winter, but they have committed to do that. So at least we've got that, but yeah, sorry.
How does this affect the development down these streets? If they're putting in homes or,
There's a provision in there that will allow them to do street cuts for new development on these homes. It's just the higher level of the higher repair standard
I
will
love the
apply.
higher level.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
put this in and all of a sudden we don't have any development because they can't do it for 3 years.
We didn't have that in there, and then Keith recognized that we needed to allow that to happen, so.
I mean, that's one way to curtail development in the city is
Wherever we don't want
every 3 years we put in new roads and
Yeah.
you'll never have development.
Wherever you don't want it, build a new road around it.
So, yeah, that would be my only concern. But,
Yeah, so
hey, I love you putting in tougher, you have to put it back the way it was.
So just so that you know, so that provision says any new development that requires a road cut into any qualifying road will be required to use the special restoration standards for restoration efforts, so.
So they're not just having to fill a pothole.
No.
Okay.
Yep. And anything that happens during the winter that is temporary and typically don't last, they have to come in and rebuild those to the higher standards when the season allows for that.
Cool.
I think this will have a dramatic impact on prolonging the life of our roads.
So right now, there's a tiny window that someone could do this before November 15th.
I guess, yeah, that's true. We'll bring this back. If council has any issues with it or wants to direct any changes, we'd love to hear that. But we'll plan on bringing this back in 2 weeks for adoption.
You don't want to do like, suspend the rules
You
for
could
this?
suspend the rule. There's nothing that we're going to change in this. You could suspend the rules and adopt it. You can't. No.
No, we can't.
We didn't notice it. Sorry. Never mind.
Oh, right.
We didn't notice it, so,
Yeah, I got it.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Nate, we'll now give you the microphone to discuss Wasatch Main intersection study.
Keith and I decided to do a switch here, so he's going to lead this discussion and I'll chime in.
Okay.
I need to correct myself. I keep calling Dominion Questar. It's Dominion Energy. Kyle, can you come do your magic? Just have to hit F5.
Here we go.
There we go. So you just use the arrows to advance. Oh, that's not the right one. Did you give it to Juan?
Yeah, I got it to Juan. He said he would be just loaded on here. Well, while Kyle's pulling that up, I did make copies of what I was going to show anyway. This is stuff that's in your packet.
It's bigger than my screen.
It was,
Screen's a little hard to see.
Can everybody, can we see? This is what we needed in our PDF in our package.
Thank you.
Do you have one you can give? Is there an extra one you can show?
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to know it's not. This isn't the size of the entire road. Okay, so let's orient me here.
Oh, I can't. Oh. Is this it?
so we're just,
Which way do I need to go?
you can just go back. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Kyle. Okay, first of all, let me introduce Charles Allen. He is with Parametrics. They're the company engineering firm that has done probably 3 studies. I know at least 2 of this intersection for us. They did one about a year ago or so, maybe even a little bit longer than that, and then completed or did, basically we did the study again. We were a little anxious to see the impact of having Jordan Bluffs, the phase 1 and 2 of Jordan Bluffs open, and then obviously having Bingham Junction Boulevard open, and it has made a difference. Let me quickly go through what I had presented. Charles is here to help answer any questions and explain some of the options and what exactly they mean. But obviously we've had some concerns regarding that kind of offset intersection between Wasatch, West Wasatch, and Main Street. As I mentioned, we had Parametrics do a study of this intersection and came up with several options as to how to deal with this. The staff recommended option is basically the option B, the right in, right out of West Wasatch Street with, let's see, I guess I don't have the magic touch, Kyle. Oh, down, okay. So that option B would look like this. It would be a raised curb from 80th South north on 7th West for about 150 feet. That would prevent left turns into West Wasatch and left turns out of West Wasatch. We believe this is a good first step in looking at this intersection. We will continue to monitor the situation and see if a situation improves or what other issues come up, and then can go from there. This is a fairly inexpensive option. The others include, and we can go through these a little bit more detail, in as much detail as you like, but as you can see, get back up here. A lot of them include some sort of signalization. Again, doing either a right in, right out of West Wasatch, realigning the intersection to create a 4-legged intersection, putting a cul-de-sac at the east end of West Wasatch Street, or doing a one-way eastbound of West Wasatch Street. Again, our recommendation at this point is to do that right in, right out with that raised curb, median. Hate to call it a median because it's really not wide enough to do anything with, other than it's basically be a 9-inch raised curb running down Main Street from 80th South about 100 feet to the north. So any questions I can help answer? Any questions you'd like to have Charles maybe answer for you? Any explanations you'd like on how decisions were arrived? Explanation of more detail on some of these other options?
Would you go through and talk about just a little bit more on sort of the cost differential between some of these options and sort of the more complex ones that we looked at, what the, if you remember, what the potential cost on some of those were?
Okay, and I may need some help from Charles here. Obviously, this option B, I have an estimated cost of about $35,000. That's basically to X out the asphalt, pour in some curb, not gutter, but some curb, and some signage. Obviously, if we get into a signalized sort of situation, and help me, Charles, signals are 150, 200 grand?
Yeah, 6 figures.
So, and then probably we're looking at something because of the you know, West Wasatch offset would probably be looking at something similar to what we have on Coliseum Way and 9th Avenue and Holden Street, or 700 West, kind of that offset. So probably, and yeah, a couple $100 grand probably on something like that. Others that would include doing, like realigning the intersection or doing a roundabout would include some property acquisition, which could run into, I don't know, $1 million. I know when we looked at this a while ago at realigning the intersection, bringing West Wasatch to the south and aligning it with 80th South at 7th West, we were looking at purchasing, I believe, outright 4 properties to make that happen. So with the prices, I bet we're $1 million plus for something like that. The roundabout, we really haven't looked at as far as how much property would have to acquire, but again, I bet we're impacting at least probably 4 to 6 properties to make that happen. Now, whether we have to purchase somebody outright, I guess would remain to be seen, but still that would be probably near $1 million dealing with that, and then with the and that's just you know, I'm just thinking of property, you know, property costs. Anything above that, again, if a roundabout obviously wouldn't need a signal, but you add road reconstruction and reconfiguration costs to that. So I think several of those options would be, you know, at least $1 million-ish. If we just did a signal and did something like what we're doing with the right in, right out, would probably be, and we're not having to deal with a lot of right of way other than maybe some, I would imagine some right of way for pole bases and whatnot, because I'm not sure we could fit all of that within the existing 700 or Main Street right of way. So it probably a couple $100,000 plus for that. Like I said, we think this is a good first step. If things don't improve or other situations arise, then we can look at, okay, what do we do? Do we add a signal? Do we bite the bullet and start acquiring property to realign the intersection, or do a roundabout of some sort?
As I look at it, a signal would be the least expensive next step. If this doesn't solve it, we could leave the barrier in and install a signal. And right. It's not as complicated as if we had West Wasatch coming in at the same time without a barrier. That would be difficult signalizing. Right,
and if we go down to the recommendations, and that's, I need a bigger screen than that, Paul, I can't read that. But in their recommendations, Parametrics talks about that alternative B is a good first step, and then advancing, like you said, to a signal and leaving the barrier in place, and still having that right in, right out on West Wasatch, but having that intersection signalized. So,
Keith, one of our public comments tonight was about an option that included the cul-de-sac rather than this plan. Do you have any thoughts of that idea instead?
A cul-de-sac would be, obviously, I think we would look at probably at least 2 properties to make the necessary turnaround for a cul-de-sac to work.
Well, why does it need to be why can't it just dead end?
I don't think the fire department would
They don't like that?
go for that. I'm not sure that, I know West Wasatch between Holden and Maine is more than 150 feet, and they don't like to have dead ends longer than 150 feet.
Just seems like it doesn't have a ton on that road, but
So you're saying the cul-de-sac is not, I mean, it's an option if we wanted, but it would require the purchase of two homes, so you're talking 800, 700 to $800,000 or more.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we could look at if, rather than a cul-de-sac, have a hammerhead at the end of West Wasatch, which requires some strips. You know, I would probably end up having to still buy the property, because once you buy a strip of land from somebody, they're not gonna wanna be left with a leftover useless piece of property would leave them. But that is something we could look at, if hammerhead, if,
it almost sounds made up. I haven't heard that one.
what's that?
I've never heard of the hammerhead. I'll have to look that up later.
It's basically just a T-type intersection. It just gives the opportunity for a fire truck to pull in, back up, and then pull out again.
Oh, I get you.
So it's about 60 feet on either end of the T, and just somewhere that they could do a 3-point turn.
Cool.
It may be in the packet. How high is the curb?
It's not in there. It'd probably be a 9-inch.
And turning to Glenn, for public work purposes, how tricky does this make plowing efforts and just other general issues that you guys might have in public works?
With a 9-inch curb, we should be okay, and we can put some signage up so that it's not missed. I do have some routing concerns, though, that maybe we can talk about. It's public works for the south access to cross I-15, and now coming back, we would either have to loop around or, anyway, there's some things to work out there.
You could still turn south off of 80th onto 7th.
Yes.
I just wonder how many people are gonna end up being used.
There we go.
Done.
Yeah.
That's my concern, is like, all of a sudden I can't go the way I wanna go, so I'm gonna make the right, then I'm gonna flip a U-ey somewhere and come back. I mean, that's the natural way people do stuff, so.
Oh, yeah, people will.
What will happen if that starts happening regularly?
I wonder about the safety issue. We're trying to make it safer, but what do? I know Mayor Sagini, after we put the dividers in by, the schools, she made the comment of, congratulations, you guys just made the road more dangerous, and you can see cars would hit it, so.
That's part of my concern, just, as someone who frequents this road, it's dark, for one thing. Just in general, Main Street, 7th West in this area is dark at night. So I think there are going to be some growing pains. We're going to see some people hitting this barrier. And the height that it is, if someone hits it at the right speed, you're going to flip your car. I'm not an expert in the physics of car accidents, but that seems to make sense to me.
Sure, going fast enough, you could do a lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't
Speed
now.
limit's 35 miles an hour,
Yeah.
30 miles an
Yeah.
hour, I believe, along there.
But not now, because there's not a 9-inch concrete barrier there.
Oh, it's 30 miles an hour now. We would keep it at that speed.
Yeah.
Is it lit there pretty well? I can't remember. I know most of it's not.
It's got a light
Let's
right at the
do
intersection.
a heads up or no, or yes or no.
Because
for
there's some
Mr.
very
Sharp.
dark spots of Maine, like very dark.
Yeah.
That I've been like, but so that might be something for future. With it,
But as we talked about, I mean, there would be reflectors, not that helped us a lot on Center Street with some of the stuff that's there, but I mean, there would be reflectors and.
Well, at both ends of the curb would be a chevron with a arrow, like you see on beginning of most like go down Bingham Junction Boulevard where those medians start, you see those sort of things. Obviously, the curb would be painted, you know, the reflective yellow. Again, not that that's a big deterrent as we've seen on Center Street. There could be those little reflectors that you see mounted on top of the curb to help delineate where the curb is.
I have two more questions. There was a lot of feedback online about this week, as you might know. One of my questions is, do we have anything other than, like, this rendering is fine, but do we have any sort of elevated rendering or something that we can show the public and let them just be able to visualize what's going here? Because to be honest, you know, a lot of us have had difficulty, you know, orienting ourselves with this map as it is.
That's the only thing we did. We could certainly spend more money and have parametrics come up with something a little more detailed. We just wanted some concept of what it would look like.
And my second question is, so yes, this is the option that the study that we paid for came back with as the best option. What is the quantitative data that says if we do this, we should reduce traffic by this amount? You know what I mean? Like, when we did the I-15 project, they came to us and said, if we put this in, we will save, 24 minutes a day. Do we have any data like that, how, what we're actually going to save?
Isn't that this paper?
Here?
Isn't that by seconds a vehicle on saving?
Yeah, I think that's what it would be, is the wait time, seconds per vehicle.
So like
That
the roundabout would drop it drastically, which blew my mind on time savings.
Right, because you're not really
stopping,
especially in the, 7th West, the north-south direction.
I think that's what the parentheses.
Yeah, and
Right.
I mean, to be honest, I saw it in the packet, but we haven't mentioned that tonight for the public and for public record. I know these tables go into the public record, but it would be nice, to have that stated explicitly for the public.
Yeah, will you just go through some of the methodology how you looked at these
and the time savings?
And the time saving.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Charles Allen from Parametrics, a traffic engineer. And yeah, that's one of the metrics we looked at in comparing these options is how much average delay does a vehicle experience when they're at the intersection. So the table that Keith showed at the beginning reports the average delay vehicles experience during the peak, the 1 hour peak period, either in the morning or the afternoon. So that's one metric you can look at to compare options. The other that's more difficult to compare quantitatively is safety. There is a crash diagram in the report that shows the types of crashes that occurred in the last 3 years. If you use a median to block off left turns in and out of Wasatch, then conceivably you could eliminate the crashes that involve a left-turning vehicle being struck by a through vehicle, which has occurred. There's also other crashes that have occurred that also might be related to the proximity of West Wasatch being so close to 8000 South. For example, in the past, there's been several northbound rear-end crashes just north of the 8000 South intersection. So those could be related to people slowing down to turn left onto West Wasatch and a driver behind them not expecting someone to stop so suddenly just after an intersection. So safety, intersection delay, experience for pedestrians, cost, those are all the factors that can be considered in working through these types of decisions. And we try to provide as much information as possible to help you understand all the factors that are important to you and the people you represent.
Since you're standing up there, but whether Keith or Charles, if you want to answer, when you put in new facilities like this, a raised curb there, typically do you see a learning period of time afterwards where there's an uptick in accidents before it sort of levels out? Do most people understand it if it's designed in the way that it is? I mean, is there anything that's like a rule of thumb or a typical or anything like that with this kind of improvement? Does that make sense?
It's hard to say. Every location's a little bit different. You know, I've heard some of the concerns about maybe people are gonna strike the median. I'm wondering, are we thinking they're gonna strike the median traveling north-south? You know, going along, or are these people that would be trying to turn in and out of West Wasatch and not remembering there's a median there?
I think it's less likely than the Center Street left-hand turns because the alignment's goofy, so people just aren't paying attention. So we're a little gun shy because we
Right.
put these medians down center and the roads don't totally line up, and so if you take it too sharp, I think people will just see it and go, you know, oh, I can't turn here. I guess that would be some striping issue, right, on West Wasatch too, to make sure people don't think that they can line up to turn left.
And there will be additional, no left turns on West Wasatch coming out. We could even put some chevrons probably on the raised curve facing West Wasatch. You know, pointing people which direction to turn.
That's right. Yeah, what you see on Center Street is there's, you know, center refuge islands.
Yeah.
But people are still allowed to make left turns, so then the challenge is for the driver to make a left turn path that doesn't clip the, you know, the median. Here, the purpose of the median is to prevent left turns, so I don't think we'd have quite that same issue where people are trying to make a left turn and then hit the median because it's directly blocking a path. So they're likely to not try and do that.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic for me. It was, you know, we always ask for when, you know, housing and development gets put in, we always say, hey, traffic study, you know, we gotta do a traffic study, we gotta do a traffic study. And I can't remember who did the first one, and they came back and sort of said, like, it's failed or it's gonna fail. And then, you know, or normally they somehow always come back, you know, with glowing recommendations that it's fine. So we're like, hey, let's go down this path, and then there's a handful of people that are mad. And it puts me in a weird spot, because I'm like, hey, you're kind of the same people that say, hey, what's the traffic gonna be like when this is done? Do a traffic study. And now that we've got, you know, what I think is probably a pretty reasonable recommendation, based off of what, you know, they want their, you know, people are worried, you know, that they can't turn left there. And so I think it's generally a good idea, just because if it's as bad as, you know, for them to come back and say, you know, there's some failing issues to begin with, you know, it makes sense. I just thought it was an interesting reaction when we got a negative reaction. We're trying to fix it, and then people, you know, are worried about it.
I didn't mean to, you know, step in too much here, Keith, so.
You're the expert, that's why.
Keith, one final question. You said in the beginning of your presentation, you said that this is a good first step. So my question to that is, if this isn't the final step, what is the final step?
Well, I think the final step kind of remains to be seen. It could be, like the mayor said, we then signalize this intersection, keeping the median in place, having West Wasatch right in, right out still, but then signalizing the intersection similar to, like I said, the 9th Avenue Coliseum Way intersection is set up. Because that's not exactly the dimensions, but it's still kind of that weird offset intersection, so.
So anyone.
Or the next step may be we decide to realign the intersection, buy up the property we need, and, you know, do that.
Okay, so anyone there's some people who are concerned that this isn't going to be effective, so just so they know that, you know, it's a first step, like you mentioned, and if we find that if it's not adequate, then we can go to.
If it's not adequate, yeah, we will continue to monitor the situation and take the next step if that's warranted.
And I think we are set up to take that next step, but at the same time, if we're able to address it with a $30,000 fix and save that money, I think that there's an advantage to that. But clearly we can move forward with that second step if need be, but we're just trying to be prudent in how we approach it.
So would you like to have us produce some better drawings of what this would look like? And I say we, I mean parametrics.
Well, I don't want to do it at, you know, some additional cost. I was hoping that maybe it was part of the fee that we paid for the traffic study to show any sort of elevated design rather than just a flat, here's where a concrete barrier is going to be.
That barrier, am I right? It'd be about as high as this is from our tabletop? That's about 9 inches, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be about 9 inches wide, probably a foot or so wide. It would have rounded or chamfered edges at the top.
Think of this out in the middle of the street. That's about the dimension. Pretty close.
Pretty close.
I mean,
Glover's truck probably could still make the left turn if he
I
wanted.
can get over it.
That's what he was looking at right there.
I guess and I don't mind it, I'm just concerned everybody's making a right, and if they needed to make a left, what are they gonna do? I mean, I can see people U-turning all over the place,
Right,
and I'm not sure, I don't know what that's gonna do.
and you're right, it's people, I'm sure, because people will do whatever they do, will go down to Wasatch Street and try to make a U-turn. Hopefully, people will go out Holden and down to Lenox, and if they needed to go north, do that.
And somewhat after they get used to it, a lot of people will change their pattern, but just like, you get people through there all the time though that haven't driven this, and I think that they'll make the right turn. I just want to know how they're going to get back to where they originally wanted to go, because we always take the least resistance.
Right, oh, you're exactly right, people,
So,
yep.
If the least resistance is a U-turn right at the end of this thing,
Well, and if we find that, you know, if we proceed with this and we find that that's a big issue, then obviously we'll look at that next step as being a signal, so at least a U-turn will be a little bit safer. Or post it as a, you know, no U-turn at that intersection.
so, I mean, I think we need to do something. Just the question is, if we do this, what are the unintended consequences?
Right, you're right.
Of what we're doing, and I don't know what those are.
Charles, what's your crystal ball say?
Well, I've learned through my career that you expect every kind of reaction. People will do all the options. There will be some who make the safer choice to divert to Lenox and make a left turn there. There'll be those who might try and make a U-turn on 7th West. I would hope that people wouldn't try and make a U-turn right at the intersection.
There is a police station nearby as well, so that might deter them.
And that's I think the geometry might even be too small to physically make a U-turn right there.
But I'm still thinking people are gonna do it.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is there is a grid in this area. So you've got Lenox, you've got Holden, you've got Allen Street, Wasatch, and Center Street. So there are several ways that people can, make a right turn and then proceed to find another way to get back to going north. Or if they're coming from the south, again, you can go up to Lenox, make a left, and then come back down south via Holden. So I would expect that most people would probably just learn to divert their trip and continue to make legal and safe maneuvers. But under any circumstance, you'll get people who are trying to drive over the median in their lifted truck.
Yeah, exactly. It will do some unintended consequences of going through some of these neighborhoods. They'll get more traffic.
That's right. Yeah, there's some diverted trips. There's a little bit of out of direction travel time for individuals. It's part of the trade-offs and considerations. Do we feel like there's enough safety and traffic flow benefit for one course of action to offset some of the out of direction travel or inconvenience for others?
30 years ago, we were working with the previous developers at Shops at Fort Union, and as they wanted to put a big project in there, and all the truck traffic that comes with a shopping center, especially with a grocery store, we requested our street to be a cul-de-sac. And people said, oh, you can't go west if you have a cul-de-sac on your street. And we just said, small problem. All we do is just go around the block and we're going west. And that's what these people will learn. I mean, we've had if I had a quarter for every vehicle in the next 5 years after we cul-de-sac our street, that came down, flipped a U-ey and headed back out, wondering why that street doesn't go through anymore, I'd be a rich man. And so it takes societal learning on traffic patterns, but they will learn. It'll take 5 years probably for some people to figure it out and go the right way. Yeah.
Yep.
As you mentioned, there's so many options that exist already, and I think people who live there are smart enough to choose one. You know, there's at least 3 ways to get in and out of this area, so
Yeah.
I don't think we'll all just be confused and head-on collisioning each other trying to figure out our next move.
And anyone not from the area will probably have their car guided GPS that will tell them, you know, where to go. I use mine almost everywhere I go now, you know, and it rarely says flip a U-turn in this random spot in the middle of the road, you know.
Not me, mine says recalculate every 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
That's because you go over those raised.
Yeah, that's because you're.
His says run over the median.
That brings up a question, what time frame does it take, let's say we put this in. What time frame does it take Google or Waze or those other GPS systems to fix what can be done at an intersection to match what can be done?
I'm not sure. I don't know how Google gets their information.
I think it's user reported, so if it tells you to turn left and you can't, then, you know, you report it on your device, and based on that feedback, they update it.
Obviously, we're getting toward the end, if not at the end of construction season, so we probably wouldn't work on this or put this in until next spring. So it's not like something we're gonna run out and try to do tomorrow. We would like some direction on, are we headed, pardon the pun, down the right road, or?
Order your concrete now.
And we may get it in March, yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, Wayne's been here this whole meeting just for this discussion. Would it be all right if he gives us his opinion?
Sure.
Is that all right with you guys?
If he has one, not to put him on the spot.
We opened it twice for that one guy.
Thank you, Wayne Sharp. I'm glad I did stick around, because when they said they're talking about Main and Wasatch, I thought they were talking about this section and south of what is actually West Wasatch Street.
Yeah.
You keep saying West Wasatch Street. The whole thing is West Wasatch Street. So I appreciate that, because on the drawing, I was like, okay, so they don't have the other side of the intersection. What are we talking about? And I think that might be the confusion with some other people also. So having that explained, great, thank you. Just a point of interest, one of those houses that you're talking about, be it a cul-de-sac or a light or a realignment, is a fourplex, a nice fourplex. You're talking millions to purchase one property. Okay, keep that in mind. When you were talking 4 to 6 properties, which would be normally 3 million, you're doubling that because one of them is a nice fourplex. Keep that in mind. By moving the traffic, that was one of my thoughts. I thought, oh, you're gonna move it down to Lenox Street. That's where I live. Like, oh, great. And as far as the people figuring it out after 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long you were saying it would take to figure it out, there's only 8 homes there on Wasatch, what we're calling West Wasatch Street, that are stable people as far as living there for very long periods of time. The other hundreds and hundreds of people that live there, they move every year. Those are apartments. So most of the traffic that uses that intersection will never figure it out because they're not there long enough. They will flip the U-turns. Okay? That's just something to consider. So I'm actually not helping the situation. I'm just adding to the problem.
But wouldn't, if a bunch of people turned over, they'd probably learn quicker, right? Because if they moved in and it was there, they would just learn right?
You would
Opposed
hope
to,
so.
yeah, opposed to
that-
like.
That makes
a-
sense, you would hope so.
Like
The
a
sign,
30-year
no
resident.
U-turns would be helpful. But I do appreciate that you found the least expensive way to solve the problem, because most people will not jump the curb like me and Paul.
Hey, I'm getting a bad rap here.
No, I'm taking it with, I'll take 50%.
I did
Not when
bring
have
my big truck tonight though, so that's probably not
I
a
know
good
I'm
thing.
parked next to
Chief,
it,
can
so
you
yeah.
follow him home?
You have a bad truck, Paul. You can handle it.
And putting a light there as the next step, it's a can of worms because of what we're calling 80th South, running it right into the back door of an intersection. It's a mess. So this really is a problem. It always has been since the street was put in. Well, since forever. So I would probably, if I were in your shoes, I would probably accept what's been suggested. If you're feeling like there's justification to really do anything. But thank you for.
I'm just worried about the, thousands of more units that are approved, right? Several thousand, right? And they're gonna wanna try to find a way to get through under the freeway. And that's what, makes me feel like it's something we need to consider now before, it gets really crazy.
Well, the easiest way in those new units is not going to be to go that way. It would be to go to Bingham Junction to Center.
Yep. Because this street,
Or Ivy.
this street doesn't connect into the new,
Right.
okay, I thought you were thinking that.
But they have to get across, if they wanna get east, right, they could turn left onto Wasatch. If they were coming from the east, I guess, they could come down Wasatch and then turn left and then get in through Ivy, right?
Right.
You could do that if you wanted. It wouldn't be the most efficient.
So if you go through with this, I would ask in advance, I was gonna ask this anyway, the intersection of Lennox and Main is a very dangerous spot also, because people park right, it's just crazy. The only way to explain it is to go try it. Go from Lennox facing east and try to turn left or right onto Main Street. It's crazy, especially because the vehicles park right up to the corners. And it's a very dangerous intersection, so that will be your next step, is dealing with that intersection if you go through with this. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you. We got any more questions we need answers on, council?
Do you have any more questions? So it sounds like we don't necessarily want to come back with any additional renderings, but we would go forward with this in the spring when it's right. Do a lot of notification and public outreach, but we would go forward with putting this in, evaluating it.
Is there any chance that we could do the no U-turn signs at the same time, just to try to get ahead of? I know signage isn't gonna necessarily stop somebody, but it might maybe help people from doing the
Yeah,
U-turns.
I think that's something we could look at and be fairly simple and cheap to do that. Because I think Charles is right, that intersection is fairly narrow. I'd hate to see people try to make a U-turn and can't quite, then they're having to back up.
Doing the
3-point
four-point
turn,
turn.
So.
So we'll go forward with this. Before it goes in the spring, we'll come back to council and just let you know that this is gonna happen at this date, so that we're all aware of it, but I think we're good with the direction to go forward.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you both.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, Charles. All right, the final discussion item is UPD compensation update. Kyle?
I'm really missing IT tonight, but that's another story. So I'm here tonight just to go over what occurred at the last Finance Committee meeting for the Unified Police Department. and then solicit feedback to provide for the mayor for the next action that will be happening this week. So first I did want to go over the timeline. There was a little bit of a difference from what I had presented earlier. So initially we had discussed that on October 21st, the UPD board would be making a vote on a potential increase. That has changed, so the UPD board will be voting on a resolution stating an intent to approve market adjustments for the remainder of the fiscal year. And then in November would actually be the vote by the board. So that's a little different than before, with the intent that the market adjustments would be retroactive to November 1st when they're approved. To give you a summary of what occurred at the Finance Committee meeting on October 6th, the mayor did present what the council had recommended in terms of our maximum amount that the city could afford of $755,000. As we had previously discussed, UPD has been presenting in terms of positions within the market, and I've translated those into dollar amounts. So what we presented is we were able to afford fit between two positions, 717,329 and 929,889. That equates to a UPD-wide increase of about 4.5 million to 5.8 million, depending on the accepted position. In terms of board members, Holiday and Mill Creek did speak in favor of a position relating to a total increase of about $6.2 million. That would equate to about $1 million for us on a full year basis. They did say they were willing to accept a position with an increase of about 5.8 million, which would be an increase of 929, about 930,000. In addition, the Slovisa member agencies all did adopt resolutions supporting a tax increase. They, of course, can't increase their tax rate yet, but they all adopted resolutions supporting that. In addition, the Slovisa board staff did say they could afford the position that Holiday and Mill Creek had requested, and that they had available fund balance to cover this current year. One note, which really doesn't affect us since we're not a part of Slovisa, is that it would put them at their maximum legal cap of what they can levy. I did just want to point out that the committee members were very understanding of Midvale's position, but they did say they were worried about not making a bold move now, and they did worry about losing officers. In addition, the sheriff did suggest a different position between what the committee's compromise position is and then our position, but that didn't seem to gain much traction from the rest of the board to discuss, but they did, the sheriff did put that out there. One thing I did want to note in terms of the positions is between our position and then the position that the committee was willing to accept, it is a pretty wide gap of about 213,000, so it's not like it's a small amount between the two different positions. I did put this graphic in there just to show graphically what the two positions that were being discussed, the preferred by the majority of the committee members, and then the amount the committee was willing to compromise, and then our position. And then it shows the difference between those positions being between 213,000 and about 290,000. I won't spend too much time on this, but in these discussions, we haven't necessarily discussed too much about what increase this would be for an officer. And these are looking at the increases in the pay ranges from the top out, and that's how UPD's presented these. But this does show what the increase would be for the different average positions based on what's chosen by the UPD board. Then finally, I did update the charts that I had included in the last presentation of how this would look financially. So if the committee preferred option was adopted by the board, as you could see, we do have enough available ongoing revenues for the current fiscal year to cover the partial year. However, when we'd get to the full year next year in fiscal year 2023, we would be short, so we would need to either look at expense cutting or possibly adjustments to our service levels with UPD. There's a multitude of options that we would need to discuss and get direction on to provide a full picture. I strictly look in these scenarios in terms of if we had a flat revenue increase, if we had a flat expense increase, factoring in the UPD assessment, what would that look like? And of course, when we get into budgeting, as you know, when we get to the budget season, it's very multifaceted and there's different things we'd have to look at. But essentially what this first position would do is, I had previously mentioned, we wouldn't need a property tax increase until 2024. This would advance that a year, all things being the same. The next one is with the committee compromise position. That shows we would still need a property tax increase next year. However, it's about half of the full amount, which would be, as you can see, an average dollar increase of about $8 for the average resident if a property tax increase moved forward. And then finally, I did just include this in. This was more along the lines of what the sheriff had proposed. It didn't seem to gain much traction. In that position, we would still be a little short of about 11,000, but that we would find ways to cover that without doing a tax increase for that small of an amount. Doesn't make fiscal sense. And we would still need the tax increases starting in fiscal year 2024. So with that, most of these are the same as the previous discussions we've had. I did mention, we do have to look at what we'll be offering our city employees next year. My hope has always been that the inflationary pressures were going to start easing. It's actually been the opposite. So the CPI increase was 5% for August, and it's now up to 5.3%. And we've discussed multiple things already, that we've had high employee turnover. I've heard rumblings, and I actually saw the first published, not article, but I've seen a wage increase from another city. They've actually already started increasing their wages for their public works employees, and they're starting to advertise that. In addition, the same things as before. We'll see some budget expansion requests next year in the general fund, especially, and the inflationary pressures that departments are seeing. And then the UPD assessment potentially increase outside of personnel. One thing the sheriff did mention at the last finance committee meeting was that she is worried about their civilian wages for their civilian employees, and she said she would most likely be bringing forward a proposal for that with the next budget cycle. So in summary, wrapping all of the numbers I just threw at you up, the additional sales tax revenue can cover us for our first year of costs, but both the committee preferred and then the committee compromise positions will require additional revenue streams or cuts starting next budget year. And then we'll need to have additional discussions as staff with council on avenues on how we fund this after the current year. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions or input you might have.
I know when we previously discussed this, there was this, and rightly so, let's talk about it in the real numbers. And we sort of use the word positions a lot without saying where we're at. Does anyone actually have an interest in, now that we've kind of gone through all that and where we're at, what that actually puts us in as far as a position in the market, or no?
Yeah, we might as well know.
I
don't like to do it that way, but the bottom line is, that's what everybody's doing.
Can you just tell us on our way out? Stand at the door.
And how many minutes until we're no longer that as well, right? Until the next, so the next city just bumps it down.
Yeah, it keeps
It
changing.
like needs to just be removed from all the discussions, like, but tell us anyways, but I mean, that's like the reality, right?
It's reality, that's the problem.
It's silly, right? Like, cause cause that's what they're gonna do. The next group will be like, we wanna be that, and we get bumped down, we're no longer that, and, it could go on, in perpetuity, as they like to say.
It will.
Which is a terrible way to run a city based off taxes. I guess we can just keep raising taxes too, we could do that.
When we had our retirement party with our code enforcement officer the other night, or the other afternoon, when I got up to leave, Chief Mazrin hustled out to talk to me and wanted to know where our council was sitting in regards to the position. And I had argued 3.5. The other cities were 4 and 5. And I told Chief Mazrin, just a gut feeling, we're gonna end up at 4 to save UPD. If we're gonna be in UPD, we've gotta probably aim for the number 4 position. Even though it's temporary, at least we get there. And I think that's a holding position we'll be in for a temporary period of time, because things just keep going up, and we're in an inflationary period now. There's nothing we've seen since the, what year? 1970s, when Jimmy Carter was in there. And
Before my lifetime.
21%.
Interest was at 21%, I know.
I know my parents' house had a 26% mortgage when they got it in the 70s, so.
And they're probably happy with that at the time.
That was life.
It was not a good time.
Ugly stream. I hated it.
That's why I waited until they almost become.
So we're gonna see some pressure from all parts of society, but that's kind of what I told Chief Mazrin is.
Thank you, guys. Have fun.
We're probably looking at 4, because I think Midvale, Mill Creek, and Holiday can probably agree on 4%, on
So-
not 4 position, I'm sorry.
And going back to the position, so what Mill Creek and Holiday initially wanted, the committee preferred his 3rd position.
Yep.
Their compromise position is 4th.
Yep.
We, Mayor Hale asked for 5th to begin with.
Yeah, and I had no support for that. So I think 3 to 5 is gonna end up in the 4 position. That's what I think.
And where we, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but where we sort of ended up, while that puts us in the 5th position, the reason that what you guys were saying when we said let's not talk about positions is good, because we're talking about the real dollar amounts. And so when they talk about the position, it sort of means, relates to a specific sort of dollar amount. And where we're at is we could call it 4.5, if you will, of the position, because we're not, where we kind of lined up was not right at what would make us in 5th place. It's a little bit more than that, because that's the difference between the 717 and the 755, right?
Right.
So where we've been articulating our position is that 755,000. So it doesn't quite align with how they sort of discuss these things, but that's where it lines up.
Yep.
It was closer to 5th than 4th, so the mayor presented 5th.
There's a big jump between 5 and 4.
Yeah.
There's not so much of a jump between 4 and 3, but that was our concern as a council, was that huge jump going from 5th position to 4th position. But I don't know, in the world of making this work, that may be where we end up.
My concern, and I just want to state it for the record, is the precedent of having a mid-fiscal year pay increase request. And these numbers are great, and, they serve as, just a glimpse as to what can happen. But if the same thing happens next fiscal year, where we are still in the throes of a public safety wage war, then these numbers unfortunately don't mean anything. And to, have that precedent of the mid-fiscal year pay increase, the same thing could happen in 2023, 24, 25, and 26.
You're absolutely right. So, council, where do you want me to go Thursday?
Just as a reminder, it won't be the fine, yeah.
We'll go to the meeting first. Start there.
Baby steps.
We can listen to the discussion, and my feeling is, both Holiday and Mill Creek understand our fiscal situation, and they do not want to move UPD so far out of Midvale's reach. They do not want that. At least that's the impression I get. They may be willing to compromise to some degree, and that's kind of what I feel will happen as long as UPD patrol officers are provided a wage for which they will work and come to work. And on that, we rely on our chiefs and on our politicians as to where we're going to go. And the taxability of Midvale is different than Mill Creek City and Holiday City. And the townships, as Kyle mentioned, they're kind of locked in, but they've got fund balance they can use till they get to January, when they can adjust their property taxes for the next year, because they run on a calendar year. But this is a tough one.
I would just note that, as you said, Mayor, Mill Creek and Holiday, their average home value is significantly higher than the average home value here in Midvale. So, you know, it's nice to be in the position that they're in, but it's also frustrating for them to be in the position to overpower some of the smaller communities that are in the UPD model. So my suggestion, if you're asking for them, is to listen to what those other communities, smaller communities say, and hopefully, you know, I wouldn't go with the first number that Holiday or Mill Creek throws out there, but, you know, we should definitely go, you know, to what we can afford as a city as well. You know, there's that, you know, we have to have a number that we can financially do. And, you know, I can't tell you other than to say, you know, we can't afford what Mill Creek and Holiday can afford, and I know you know that. So if they say 5%, we go lower. You know,
Well, you mean number 3 position?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. They're doing that also horrible way of quantifying and qualifying it.
Because that's a moving target. I recognize that. They know that too. Paul, what do you feel?
Well, I mean, obviously, we need to pay our police because, I mean, that's one of our things that we need to do most is guarantee safety for our community. So we need to do that, but at the same time, we do need to look at our citizens and how much they're paying taxes. And so we've got to compromise. And obviously, the way this works is each of you are got to vote. So hopefully you can compromise together before you take that vote, but if you can't, you take the vote for what we can afford and let the chips fall where they are. If we lose, we lose. But you need to stand up for us and say, these are the reasons why we want to do this amount. And give them your best pitch, and then it's gonna have to fall where it goes. And we're gonna have to live with whatever it is. I mean, we're at this point, we are with UPD, and our city votes just like every, and we have to live with whatever the vote is. So, but we need police support, and we need police to be here in our city. Without it, it's not going to be much of a city. They do a great job, so I just put our out there what we can afford, and this is what we'd like you to do, and try to work it.
Is it a proportional vote, do you know?
believe it
It can be
is.
called for.
Can you call for it?
It takes two
To be,
to call for it. Takes two to bring that into effect. It's, we have about 8% of the vote.
and so from our perspective, would that not be beneficial if our position is to make it proportional?
I don't know, would it?
I don't think so.
I think how many votes is there on the, how many
Well,
votes?
I've seen some heads go up and down, and I've seen some
Depends
heads
on
go side
how
to
many
side.
votes there is.
Yeah. I think that it's,
There's about 12.
yeah.
So 12, so,
But some of them have 12 to 15 to 16% on that table. Are you
Yeah.
looking that up?
so, I mean, it could be to our disadvantage possibly.
Well, yeah, and
That's what I fear.
I just, if you're there, you know, and determine that it is to our advantage, then my suggestion would be to move to do so.
Yeah, if we were the biggest city in UPD,
Then it would definitely.
pull that trigger right now.
But we're this, we have to be the second. I mean, Mill Creek is more populated than us, but
Yeah,
of the cities, we have to be the second most populated city left.
and then you've got Kearns that's larger than us. There's several of the metro townships that are larger, 2 or 3 of them.
But I would assume Kearns would be more aligned with a lower position fiscally.
So far, we're the only ones who've been really pushing for this lower number. The other communities have, I don't know how they're funding it, but they're all really pushing for those higher numbers. We're the only ones who are kind of pulling back on that, and I think that that is the right place to be. And really, this $755,000 number, I mean, I guess as you say, what can we afford? I mean, that's where we've been sort of couching it up to this point. But I mean, there are definitely ways of making those other positions work. The meeting that's happening in 2 days, though, because it's just going to be that resolution saying that there's an intent there, we'll work on making sure that we have the math right on this once we hear what their positions are before that November 18th meeting.
And then just as a point of clarification, Kearns is in Slovisa, and all of the Slovisa communities have adopted resolutions supporting a property tax increase to the legal maximum.
They have. Bryant, Heidi.
I'm gonna agree with Councilmember Glover.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. All right. We'll put the biggest anchor we can out there, so we can slow this machine down. Yeah. Okay. Again, when I talked with Chief Mazrin, he was feeling me out, and that's kind of where the politics of the UPD council is, in my opinion, we're probably aiming at position number 4. That seemed to have, it was centrist, and probably would be able to carry the vote, in my opinion. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we just keep going on this now, Rory?
I think we just keep going.
All right. I'm going to call to order then the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City on this October 19th. Welcome, Chief. You're our audience tonight. Good to have you here.
He is the most attended RDA, person in every one.
Yeah.
I'm at least equal with him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Rory, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Board Member Brown,
Here.
Robinson,
Here.
Glover,
Here.
Gettle,
Here.
and Sperry.
Here. Thank you. Any public comments? Hearing none. We will move on to the consent agenda. This is to consider the minutes of September 21st, 2021.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Questions, comments? Hearing none. Rory?
Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Glover.
Yeah, aye.
Barry.
To quote Heidi, yep.
Robinson. Yes. And Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
Clever almost said it.
We'll now move to the action items. The first one is to consider resolution number 2021-20 RDA adopting 2-year extension to RDA project areas.
Thought I wasn't listening.
You're not Cody, but
I'm not Cody.
you're his boss, so go for it.
All right. So Cody has been feeling under the weather for the last couple of days. With technology, he wanted to join in, but he couldn't. So he presented this to the board just recently. What this is in 2020, the legislature enacted a bill that would allow RDAs or CDAs to extend by 2 years based on impacts of COVID. Those require each area within the authority to actually demonstrate that there's been an impact on from COVID on collections in those areas. Cody reached out to primary developers in all 3 of the areas who did provide evidence that their developments that were scheduled to go forward, which would have generated tax increment, did not go forward because of the effects of COVID. So what that ends up doing by extending it for 2 years within the Bingham Junction RDA, that has the potential to bring in $16 to $20 million for those 2 years. And Jordan Bluffs bringing an additional $10 million. Main Street CDA is capped, but it would still extend the time period of that so that there's more time to allow tax increment to reach that cap, which is a good thing. So with that evidence and some significant projects, I mean, all you have to do is think about the state of the CHG parking lot, something that would be completed with a whole second addition to that building, bringing in significant tax increment, which got delayed, likely for more than 2 years. Within the resolution itself, each area is broken out, and the requirements of the code, the state code, are all detailed in there, including the justifications for each of the elements that the code requires. So this very comprehensive resolution, basically all we have to do, if the state auditor ever asked, was just to give the resolution, and it has all the evidence that justifies enacting this resolution. I am happy to answer any questions, but we're asking the board to adopt the resolution 2021-20 RDA, extending each one of the project areas by 2 years.
So because of the statute, we can just do this as the board. We don't have to go get the approval of all those other entities.
Yep,
Just give them notice after the fact.
Yep, the way that the law was written is that the board can enact this, and notification needs to be provided to the other entities at the end of the period. So basically, the year before these expire, you go to the board and go to the other taxing entities and say, we enacted this 2-year extension, and therefore we continue to collect for 2 years. So you don't even have to do it at the end. We'll let them know that we did it. Almost every RDA has done this, so it's not going to be a surprise to any taxing entity.
Is this like maybe you mentioned this and I missed it. Can you keep doing it, or is this kind of like a one-time?
This is a one-time thing, unless they go and do another. At the time that they did it, then there was actually a question of, do we do it for 1 year or for 2 years? And they said, oh, let's do it for 2 years just in case this thing keeps going. Obviously, that was a good decision, but I think most of them probably carry into multiple years. I don't know that they're going to add more years to this. They haven't really talked about doing anything like that, but yeah, one time.
One-time thing. And once the RDA timeline has, expired, past this 2-year thing, that means like those taxing entities will receive more tax money in the future, right? Isn't that how this works?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that gives more time to incentivize the developments that were gonna happen, so
So it can build a bigger,
it can build a bigger, or at least build to where we initially said it was going to build.
Was your question at the end of the lifetime?
after it expires,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, the lifetime would have been like 2046, now it's gonna be 2048.
Yeah.
And as it ends,
And like 2049,
2049, those taxing entities get 100% of the.
So-
of the
Right,
taxes.
right.
And we're trying to make it so they get them.
They'll get the
The
full
most
amount, because
possible.
we're giving ourselves time to continue to incentivize and to develop.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that's clear for like the public if they're paying attention at all, because it, like schools are, a taxing entity, right? So like, I
That's
don't want them to
correct.
think we're taking from the school, right? The idea is we're trying to, once this comes to an end, the taxes they collect will be, greater, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And even Midvale
Yeah.
City, I mean, when it comes to an end, Midvale City will get all those taxes directly instead of the RDA.
Right,
Yeah, and,
but it would be more because we're hoping we can get,
Yeah, you keep building and keep building.
and there is, the school districts on the 2 RDAs are getting 20% of the revenue that's being generated now with the CRA. The Main Street, they're getting 40% already, so I mean, they're already seeing,
The
returns
increment,
from
you
the
mean,
development.
right?
What's that?
The increment.
Yeah, the increment. They already get a portion of the
Yeah,
increment. that wouldn't
it's only
exist.
the additional amount above what it was when we started the RDA.
Right.
So if they would get pretty much what they're getting right now.
Plus
for the-
20%.
Plus 20% of any increase up
Right.
until then. And then once it's over with, then they get 100% of their portion.
Correct.
Any further questions for Nate? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
motion to dismiss.
We have to have a
I
motion.
know, I'm just kidding.
I second.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We'll do this later.
Mayor, I move to pass resolution number 2021-20 RDA, which extends the collection period for the agency's 3 project areas by 3 years due to the project areas being impacted project areas.
Second?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Did you say 3 years or is it 2
It says
years?
3 years in the,
It's 2 years, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
I
not sure.
second the 2 years.
I'm not sure what it says.
yeah, it says
It
3
says
and,
2 years in each of the 3 project areas impacted.
I mean, I
No,
can,
it does say.
I can see.
It says.
It says 3.
Collection
I
period for
think
the agency's 3 project areas by 3 years.
I'll just read it again. I
I
move,
think,
Well,
I think
why
it
don't
reads
you-
3, but we mean 2, right?
Well, and the so the resolution language itself
I think my motion.
here is actually,
I second Brian's motion. Let's just scrap it. I move to pass resolution number 2021-20 RDA, which extends the collection period for the agency's 3 project areas by 2 years due to the project areas being impacted project areas.
I second the amended motion.
All right, so we got a motion and a second on the amended motion. Any further questions on this action item? Rory?
Board Member Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
And Sperry.
Aye.
And one final item.
Motion to adjourn, get the heck out of here.
Thanks to everybody.
I felt like Bryant was like on TV.
You got it.
I have to get my food.
So I thought it was just
Sorry.
I couldn't find it.
you want this or no? You always leave it.
Is that when we meet again?
Well, the next time we meet is certification.
Is it?
We don't have a meeting on the second, so
I thought we had one in 2 weeks. Because it's election day.
Good luck.
thank you.
I voted for myself, so I think I'm
As long as
solid.
he voted for himself.
So I ran unopposed once.
Yeah.
I had one vote against me.
Oh, I think I'm gonna have more than that.
How did you get that?
I think it was my wife.
Well, no, it'll tell you, at the end, it'll say, like, registered voters who voted, and then
Oh, yeah.
how many votes you got. My last one, I only got 150 people didn't vote for me. When I essentially ran